Brian, you've been at Vivint for 12 years?
12 years. Started, it would have been 2012. Yeah, this is going on December of 2012. And it's funny, jumping back, Sam and I were talking pre-podcast and talking about all the stuff that reps don't know or they get away from as they've been in the business for so long. And sometimes even thinking about 12 years ago starting in this, I get away from the roots. So it's going to be fun over this next however long this goes just to get back into where this all started and how we're in this room. So it's going to be exciting for you and hopefully for some listeners and myself even.
Absolutely. Why don't we talk a bit about your origin story? Why don't you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and the genesis story of BG? Because I imagine people didn't always call you BG. You were known as Brian.
I've had a couple nicknames I've acquired along the way, but BG is the one that stuck. I grew up in Northwest Indiana, right outside Chicagoland, about 20 minutes south of Chicago. Everyone thinks of Indiana as, you're from Indiana, it's cornfields, Indianapolis. I'm more of the Chicago kids. Growing up right on the suburb of Chicago, Chicago Times, Chicago sports teams, everything bled Chicago, Cubs, White Sox. It's funny when you're from Indiana, but you're a Chicago fan, you can cheer for both the White Sox and the Cubs and not be like an outsider to them. So that was a cool thing growing up. But going back to the OG days, so I grew up, I have two younger brothers. We have Brian, myself, Brandon, and Brent. So my parents, we were called the BR brothers. So now from the BR brothers to BG is funny. But being the oldest and just lay it all out on the line for everybody. And for you, Sam, I don't know if a lot of people know the story, but my dad was, he's a recovering alcoholic. So growing up, my parents are still together. They've stuck through everything. My mom's the same. My mom's been a school teacher for going on over 40 years. So she teaches first through third grade. And I always joke about it in every sale I do when I'm building rapport, and we'll get to this later. But one story I always share is, are you familiar with the movie The Christmas Story where the kid gets his tongue stuck to the pole? So that's the movie, that's the school that she teaches at where that's all based off of.
Oh, no.
So it's like an instant rapport builder when I'm with clients. My mom teaches, she grew up a teacher. Dad was sober my whole beginning of growing up. And it's funny, we never had alcohol in the house. And I don't know how maybe this isn't related to stuff, maybe it is, but I'll just give you the everything. We never had alcohol in the house, never got to see it. So it wasn't something that was really around us, but I just remember from growing up, there was traumatic events that happen. And as you get older and in my 30s now, you look back at it and a lot of people like to tell themselves a story that it is the reason why they weren't able to do something, the reason why they weren't able to be successful, the reason why they still carry this stuff with them now. And for me, I chose to use it as my superpower. The fact that I had that trauma, the fact that I didn't have everything I wanted, didn't make the sports team, like everything that I failed at, I used as a superpower to give me the fuel to keep going and the reason why I've been in the business 12 years. But yeah, after high school, went to college at Ball State. It's a smaller school in Muncie, Indiana. So the only claim to fame out of Muncie, Indiana is David Letterman. So a guy from my fraternity had gone out. It was my sophomore year in college. A guy in my fraternity had gone out, done a summer, and it was funny. I did the whole interview process. The guy came in, spoke to the whole frat, kind of how I recruit now, and told me everything I wanted to hear. You make this money, you get to learn this, you get to be a resume builder, you get to go out with your friends. And I was like, this sounds great. Prior to that meeting, it was a couple weeks before summer, and I had already decided, like a lot of kids I recruit or interview or train or whatever, I had already had a plan where I'm going to go back home for the summer after college, and I was working at a semi-truck body shop. My dad was sales in the office. And I was like, you know what? I'd already made my commitment to go work back at this semi-truck body shop. I can't go with Vivint. So I sat out the first summer. I onboarded, did all the training. And like a lot of reps, you have them every year where they're like, you know what? Next summer, Sam, stay in touch with me. This will be my summer. And we hear them every year. Most of the time, those guys you don't hear from. Sometimes you do. I was one of the ones that what happened was one of my fraternity brothers, he went out, made 100 sales. He was the top rookie. And back in the day, 12 years ago, 100 sales as a rookie was huge. He went to Midland, Texas. And when he came back to school, we were signing up by the boatload. Everybody in the fraternity was like, we're going out no matter what.
Because they heard of his success?
Yeah. And it was one of those classic cliches, if he can do it, I can do it. And it was one of those guys, super talented dude, likable cat. But it was a perfect example of if he could do it, I can definitely do it.
Yeah.
We soon found out the reality is the job was really hard and he was really good at what he did. So we did our first summer to DFW. So I moved. That next summer was going into my junior year. I was like, Mom, I'm going to go move to Texas this summer. She said, no, you're not. And I think that's something that was really important in my career because most of the time, the people close to us are the ones that they know best. They do it out of love. It's nothing like they're trying to hold you back intentionally. We even find ourselves doing it as a leader and a manager. We want to know what's best for sometimes for us, for our reps or for the people we work with. And at that time, I had to just tell my mom, Mom, you raised me. You got to just trust me on this one. And flash forward to today, she's my biggest fan, biggest recruiter. She's the type of woman where at a restaurant, the server comes up, she's pitching Vivint. And I'm like,
she is?
Yeah, nonstop.
On your
She
behalf?
is every day. She's calling me, Brian, I got
crushes
another
it.
recruit. And she leads with money. And I go, Mom, nowadays you can't lead with the money part. They like the growth opportunities. They like what they could become, what's, intertwined in the money, the lifestyle, the culture, 100%. So that was a funny thing every time. But so I went out, it was actually December when I got recruited, and they had a sales blitz coming up for the week before Christmas.
In 2012.
In 2012. This had been 2012. And I was like, we're going to drive to McAllen, Texas. So from Indiana to McAllen for a blitz. Again, nothing was convenient about it. Nothing made sense. We drove in a Ford Taurus without even a shifter in it. And I feel like from the Sam Taggarts, from everybody that's like in our realm of sales, they have a very similar story in the beginning where it's never just this golden path to success.
Yeah,
It's like,
the Red Sea doesn't part.
it doesn't part.
where
No,
you
if
are
anything,
and the
it's
promised
flooding
land.
you while you're going.
And you had to stand up for what you really wanted, despite you not getting approval from the person who probably matters most
They
to
did,
you in
yeah.
this world. And you went with your friend who had gone out the summer before and sold 100 accounts.
Yep.
So you already felt fairly confident. It's that comparative competition. Hey, he's no better than me.
100%. Like
And
we're going.
you-
And we had 4 of us in the car. So
Four.
20 of us from our fraternity, we drove 4 deep. So it was me, my buddy Brandon Top, Chris Wooten, and J. Cole. So Chris Wooten, who's still in the industry, a couple
Okay.
other guys.
And did you have exposure to sales before this?
So I skipped a big chunk. So growing up, besides the alcoholism, dad loved them, parents still together, love my pops.
Your dad was in sales.
Dad was in sales my whole life. He's been in network marketing, multi-level marketing.
oh.
To this day, he still pitches me multi-level marketing. I'm like, Pops, we're going to vet it a little bit. So I'm his vetting guy now. So where he gives me an idea, he's like, I'm going full board. I'm like, let me do some research. But back in the day, every network marketing company he was involved with, I was in all the meetings. So I would go to these guys and I would see them from selling. We sold these chocolates. I'm just thinking of some of the ones I remember. It would change your taste buds so you wouldn't be as hungry. There was jewelry companies that they did. So every winter in December, around holidays, I would set up a booth of jewelry at a local gym, and I would sell jewelry. Like guys would come by, and this is how I would make my money to get my Christmas presents, to do everything. So I've been hustling, quote unquote, like my entire life. I sold every candy bar contest we ever had in athletic sports, selling the coupon books. Our first, I think, big win for me and my brother, where we knew we had the gift of like sales and persuasion in that. Boy Scouts, it was like 3rd grade, I think. We went and sold like 5 G's worth of popcorn door to door.
Wow, $5,000.
$5,000 worth of popcorn door to door.
$5,000 is a lot of popcorn.
There's a lot of popcorn. It is. It's
Hard to feel full when you're eating popcorn. That's the point of it.
Yeah, that's the bittersweet part of it. So, but then from popcorn sales, we used to sell booklets. My parents to this day, they're big on going to estate sales, getting deals on stuff and then reselling it. So I've been around the reselling, the sales. My mom was teaching full time. My dad was in sales. And they ran a jewelry business together where they would go into people's homes and they would run home shows, and it was an experience. My dad would go in as a guy to an all-female industry and sell jewelry to these women, and they loved him. Every time they would have the show at the house, they would go to a friend's house, the people would be raving about it, and they would sell this jewelry. And I would go with them on those. And at first, like, I used to get so frustrated. My dad, everywhere we would be going, he'd sell something, like whether it was like this business or this product or that product. We'd be at the bank and I'd be like, Dad, like, let's go. I was golfing with a kid the other day, and his dad was there, and the kid was 15, and it was like PTSD. The guy's dad is selling us on like his mortgage company or whatever he did, regardless. And the kid's like, Dad, like, tee off, hit the ball. And that was like me. It was like I hated everything about it early on. So I had this notion that I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to be overbearing, overselling, always selling. So I've taken that into my business now, where I really sell in the field, but outside of the field, like I'm recruiting and stuff like that. But I don't try to take my business home with me per se.
Because you were the oldest. Did your brothers follow suit, or were they also exposed to as much business as you were? Or because you were the oldest, you got courtside seats of all these business endeavors that your parents were involved in?
For sure, courtside seats for me. And then, my younger brother, Brandon, he's in ministry, he's a pastor back in Indiana. We were 1 and 2. So whatever I was selling, he was selling. And we would always one up each other. So that just drove the competition between us. My youngest brother, he's about 5 years younger. He took the different path where he was more into the BMXing and the extreme sports world, whereas me and my brother were more of the basketball, baseball, football kind of deal. But to this day, he's still selling as well. He's actually in the marijuana industry. legally now back in Michigan. My dad always jokes about it. He's like, I have one son that sells alarms, one son that sells Jesus, and one son that sells weeds. So I thought that's always a funny one.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I've got it all. I've got
he's
variety.
got it. He's literally whatever you need, he's got it. Throughout that whole time, I was always selling. I even remember like going back to like even elementary and middle school, I was selling things out of my locker. And you don't think about this until you're asked questions like this, where you're like having to really peel back the onion of how am I here now?
Yeah, where did this come from?
Yeah, and it was definitely just all of those precursors throughout young childhood into young adulthood, into high school, college, and now just been doing it since the greater part of my third of my life.
Which has been a large percentage of your life.
Yeah.
Because you've been selling for 85% of your lived experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because there's this concept in child development where you have nature and nurture. Nature is your DNA or your inclination to behave a certain way based off of your parents because you inherit a lot of their traits, but also your environment shapes you, where now you have the nurturing side. Your parents put emphasis on this type of work, which exposed you to certain things. If you're a parent watching this or you're an uncle or an aunt, you can think, how can I expose my kids or my loved ones to things that I think could greatly amplify their nature? And it's not just happenstance that has brought you where you're at. It seems to be there was some deliberate guidance.
Yeah.
On a temporal sense within your family, but also you're a spiritual man. There's a rhyme and reason for things, and there's intervention from a higher being. There very well could be a lot of his hand in your life. And do you draw that conclusion?
1,000%. It's all glory to God. It is the foundation of all of it. And it's not cliche, and to each is their own. I'm not one to push my thoughts or beliefs on anybody, but at the same time, where my faith comes from is experience, not the outside world. So it's what I've seen from my home life to my parents going through ups and downs and fighting through it, my personal life, and we'll maybe get to this later, but going through a breakup or quote unquote divorce and all the things. If I didn't have that faith, there's no way I'm sitting here with you doing this podcast with the love for life I have. And that's a big thing I run in my program, is where we're going to church, or we really try to focus on having some kind of spiritual side to you. Whatever that is you believe. For me, it's God. For whatever it is for you, you have to have something that can give you an answer to what all this is about, for good and for bad. And if you don't, those are the people I feel like, it's not that they're bad people. I believe there's always the good in them, but they tend to be more of the blame people versus I don't blame. I'm grateful for the struggle. And that's something we'll get to talking about too. Just all of the ups and downs. Every time I sucked at something, why did I suck at it? Why didn't I do it? And for me, it came in sports. I was always athletic, but I never performed at the top. And it's because I hated practice. I'd rather go hang out with friends. I hated to commit to that extra level of studying at night, playing football, whatever. I didn't know a play. I didn't pay attention to them. I just wanted to go out there and do the action.
And hit somebody.
Yeah, that's it. That was it.
What position did you play?
My football career was pathetic. It was like I was a center. I never got played in a game. I did it because all the buddies did it.
You're the first set of hands to touch the ball.
That was it. I didn't get to touch the ball much, though. And I think my sports career, not ever raising to what I thought I was capable of, if I look back to my biggest years in my professional life, I had a chip on my shoulder to not give in to all the things that I had settled on early on. Not doing the extra practice, not meeting with the coaches, not giving it your all. You hear it all the time. You got to give 110%, whatever it is. At that time, I was like 50%. I would do it just to show face, be with my homies, be with the friends. But afterwards, I just wanted to go run, hang out with the girls, hang out with my guy friends, go hang out on the weekends. The last thing I thought about was going to practice. I hate traveling for tournaments, but I would always do it. My parents always made me, if I signed up for something, we were going to it. And we'd fight tooth and nail. Looking back at that time of my life, I was stubborn. I was like a young, oldest child. I wasn't babied. My grandmother lived in the house with us. She was like my best friend growing up, my mom's mom. And she was a warrior, dude. This lady, my grandma Connie, everyone in my whole town called her grandma. And her famous line is, shut the hell up. She just had an attitude about her. She ran a liquor store. Her husband, my grandpa, died before I was born of heart failure. Her oldest son, who had lived with us, my Uncle Johnny, he had died of brain cancer. And then her youngest son died in a tragic plane accident when he was in his 20s. And she was still waking up with this smile and love for life. It was definitely because the grandchildren in the house, like me, my brothers, and my parents were going through stuff. Grandma was our rock. There was most nights we're sneaking out of bed and going to sleep in grandma's room, and she's just chain smoking cigs in the room back in the day, and we're just loving life. It was the best thing. She'd do the laundry, she would spoil us, but having that comfort, it was a huge thing that allowed me to go through any of the traumatic events growing up. I just looked at them as grandma's been through worse, dude. If she can lose this and this and still be smiling.
Yeah, it's like the story of Job in the Bible.
That's it.
Despite having all these things that she cherishes being taken, she still chose to see the hand of God in her life. So what inspiration.
It is.
And you grew up with her.
Yeah,
she lived in the
same house my entire life. So my grandma built the house that my parents eventually bought from my grandmother. Oh. She was set to move out, get her own house. She actually bought a house and didn't ever move out.
She liked it there so much.
She lived in it. My mom, the same house she was raised in is the same house that she still lives in to this day that my grandma had built back in Indiana.
So she was influential to you.
Very.
Outside of your parents, would you say she was the next most influential person in
I
your
would
circle?
say, and nothing, no shade against my parents. My mom's a school teacher. My dad's in sales, raising 3 boys. Like, grandma was at the house 24/7. So grandma was probably even...
She was the rock.
She was the rock. Grandma was the rock that held everybody together. When my dad was acting up, she would hold it together. When mom was unhappy, grandma would hold it together. No matter what the fam was going for, grandma was the rock. And I tried to now, in my life, be that for my family after she had passed away a few years ago while I was out working for a summer. And it sucked. And we're going to get to all those trials and tribulations throughout the whole story because it's going to relate to these listeners. The best thing about my story is it's nothing special. And Sam will disagree. I know Sam will disagree.
It definitely is special, Brian, because
yeah.
for you to do what you've done and be resilient, that's someone really special. There's this quote Steve Jobs says, "It's nearly impossible to forecast how things will go, but when you look backwards, you can connect the dots very quickly." There's something to be said about hindsight. It's 2020. And I think it's really important that we talk about your origin story. What other influences do you think you had in your life that meant a great deal to you outside of maybe your direct family? People that inspired you.
It's a great question. And it's one that's still to this day, I'm trying to seek that out. Being an oldest brother, when you're a son of an alcoholic, you're in defense or you're in like a protection mode a lot of times. So for me, I wasn't vulnerable growing up. I never shared this stuff. I was never one to like go out and bitch and complain to people about it. I just put the backpack on, went to school, got home, and made the best of every day. But going back, we never went without, but we never had extra. Like I was never one to shop at the nicest stores and all this stuff. We had a good house that we were raised in, a good community. But at the same time, I hung out with a lot of my good friends that were their parents. They lived in a country club, gated community. And I would drive around this neighborhood, and it's the cliche stories you hear from the other entrepreneurs. I'm going to live in this neighborhood one day. I'm going to be here. And I would drive around. And I remember going to like the clubhouse with the guys from the country club, and they're like, "Yeah, just put it on my parents' tab." And I was like, "What? This is like wild." Like I get $5-10, or like most of the time it's like I got to go sell a freaking coupon booklet to have money for the weekend, do whatever. So to have their just like expense card, I was like, "This is the like why? What are my parents doing? Why aren't we doing it like this?" And you got to realize, and now being 30, I don't have kids of my own, but I have a niece and a nephew, and my brother's seeing this now. For all the parents out there, I couldn't imagine for you too, being an uncle, all the hard parts they get to do, all the good parts we get to have fun with them. But being a parent and being a mom and dad, having their own struggle to raise us, it's whew. And I just have so much, the utmost respect for anybody that's out there being a parent, especially in our industry, because it's never easy. But again, I use it as a throttle for me where what's one's excuse is my, superpower. So because I don't have kids, I want to be in the right position when I do, that they're going to be great. They're going to have all the stuff that, not I didn't have, but just stuff that I want to be able to never have them without. And same thing I do for my niece and my nephew now. I never want them to be without, so I make sacrifices paying for their school.
And when you do that act of kindness for somebody, what's the feeling that you think they get?
So every year, you've seen it recently, on Thanksgiving, we give back to the homeless. And I remember being 3rd grade, and we'd go to this high school. My dad worked with this group of firemen, and they set up the biggest Feed the Homeless event in the region. And they call it the region, Northwest Indiana. And we would go every Thanksgiving, like clockwork. At first, we'd argue and cry about it. No, I don't want to. And then again, at the other side of that argument and of bad things I don't want to do, it was the best times ever since I can remember. I think it was 3rd grade we had started. I did it every year. We would go and we'd go do the homeless thing. And every year we'd look forward to it. And the next year you'd look forward to it more. And every time it's a perspective thing for me. I draw on this throughout hard summers. I draw this throughout hard weeks. It can always be worse. So that's where the giving back started. And now flash forward to today. It's like this past week we went and did that. And my guys, for the first time, they were looking forward to it. Hey, it's Thanksgiving this Thursday. We're going to go feed the homeless. I was like, yes, finally, it's starting to catch on. And even going back to that mentor question you had, I never had a person that I can lean on to be like, hey, can I pick your brain on this? Can I pick your brain on this? So I always appreciated guys like you that were like always curious about that kind of stuff, because for me, it just, as an oldest child and like an oldest brother, like I always had to be the rock where I didn't put it out there. But now after going and doing, I always say it in this tone, but like therapy and stuff like
Good
that.
for you.
Yeah, you get to learn there's value in all of that. And
So
all
much.
the things you avoid are the things that are what you need to do.
Can you think of someone who was influential? Though you were the oldest, you had to wear the crown. Was there anybody like that in your life?
And sadly enough, no one comes to mind that's was the really this besides grandma. Like grandma was probably the biggest.
She sounds amazing.
Yeah, grandma
Rest in
grandma
peace.
was a G, man. Grandma was the OG. So she helped out a lot. We would spend every morning reading the newspaper, shooting the shit, and she was just no filter. Running a liquor store in East Chicago back in the day, like having 5 sons. My mom was one of 6. She had 5 brothers, one daughter, and it was just nutty. And I think that the only thing that's resonating with me a little bit is prior to starting Vivint, I was in my fraternity, and the guy that our pledge educator, and I'm not a big like the frat guy, like whatever. It's fun. I love it. It's good relationships. I'm not like a fratty guy by any means, but the guy that was our pledge educator, he was the first person that kind of set the tone on what the next chapter looks like. And I was grateful for that. And he actually did Vivint, and he was the one that told our whole pledge class, like, you got to do Vivint. And then that following summer is when we went out. So it all branched from, his name is Tony. So shout out Tony on that. And it was a different way of looking at things. He was stern. And as a pledge educator, like in a fraternity, they're the ones that, you know, they got to be the boss. They got to lay the law.
They have
gotta,
the alpha instinct.
but at the same time, there was just always a respect where he ran a great pledge ship. He had all of us inspired on being the best versions of ourselves. And the only reason why I joined a fraternity, it was funny. My mom was in the sorority. And when I went to Ball State, she went to Ball State. She said, hey, I just want to take you by the fraternity stuff. I was like, no, I don't want to go. Like, this is corny. Like, I'm just going to go, just drop me off at my dorm. I'll get moved in. So we're just going to go. We'll drive by it. So we walk into this house. We do a little lap. Flash forward 2 months into school. These guys came up and they're like, hey, you should come to this event. We're going to be drinking, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whatever, we'll go to it. Come to find out, it's like a recruiting event. But it was an interesting one. It was like the inspiration night. And so they was just talking about all this stuff you don't hear in college, whether it was like what the next chapter looked like. And I was hearing all this stuff that I've never heard before.
Was it personal development
It was
stuff?
personal development stuff. Like, more of these were just like business owners that started in the fraternity, talking about the connections they've made, the importance of business behind the fraternity, learning hierarchies, learning how to run a good chapter meeting, which is essentially like a good business meeting. When I was hearing all this, and it resonated a little bit, so I ended up doing the fraternity stuff. I wasn't super involved. I ended up being like a philanthropy chair. So I was raising money for cancer. I did that my senior year. Again, another money drive. We raised $10,000 for Huntsman Cancer Institute. But Tony was probably the biggest mentor-esque.
He gave you maybe a little bit of space where you stepped into some interests that you didn't know you had. What is it that took you to school?
So I was C student, baby. C's get degrees. I never, in high school, I always had to pass. I could never fail. My parents, they were honest about that. We weren't going to fail classes, but I was never one to get A's by any means. I was a get by kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like last night, I'm filling out homework on the bus, and it goes again into my career now. It's what was I doing then that I wasn't getting A's? And now, same way in my business, what am I doing now to not get the A? Or what am I doing now to not get the production I wanted? So it helps me go back to that and rewind and see what I was doing then. Just from being average, I was like, Mom, if you want to fill out the college stuff, I'll go to your school. Like the first time I was on campus is the first time I applied, I got in. There's 3 big schools really in Indiana. There's Purdue, there's IU, and there's Ball State. If you're good grades, above a 3.5-ish, you're getting into Purdue or IU, where probably half of my graduating class went. And we graduated with, it was like 500-600, maybe more students. I don't know the numbers on stuff, but it was a bigger graduating class. I would say 30% went to IU.
What is it that you wanted to study?
Business. The generic business. The best quote I got from college was, you're learning how to learn. I had a business teacher, and I would go to him, and he's like, Brian, listen, they ain't going to care about your grades. They're not going to care about any of it. All of this is about here, you're not going to remember this equation I'm teaching you. You're learning how to learn it. And so when you learn how to learn, it's going to make it easier for you when you have to learn your first thing in your new job. And so I've taken that with me, where only value of college was learning how to learn. I didn't look at it like, hey, I'm going to memorize this stuff. So that's where all the kids nowadays, it's turning in an assignment that was filled in on ChatGPT. Let's be honest. No one's sitting there, unless you're in the profession of, you're going for a doctorate, you're going for a lawyer. If you're in business, whether it's our opportunity here at our company, or there's a plethora of other things, you're going to get way more resume builders. And it was funny. I don't mean to skip around, but I was actually, after I did 2 summers of Vivint, and we'll jump back to it, but I did my 2 summers of Vivint, I was graduating. And I was with my ex at the time, and like I just graduated college. Like I wasn't that sold on doing door-to-door sales forever. I was like, I'm going to go do my college thing.
So you had your first summer in between your sophomore and junior year?
Yeah,
junior
sophomore
year.
or junior year was my first summer.
You find the Vivint opportunity through a friend. You and your buddy, you go to Dallas-Fort Worth?
DFW, baby.
And was there a manager on the other end to receive you? Did you talk to them or no?
I did the interview. His name was Frank. He was like a god at the time. He was super confident. He had the whole recruiting deck. We sat at a restaurant. We did the whole interview. And at the end of it, you know, scale 1 to 10, where you sitting? I was like, sign me up, dog. Like, whatever I got to do. I don't care. There was nothing you're going to tell me. Most of the kids we interview now, it's, hey, I got to talk to my mom. I got to talk to my dad. I'm like,
I got to make sure I don't have any summer engagements.
Dude, what are we talking about?
I might have band practice.
And the more we talking about this, the more fired up I'm getting about the younger people. So hopefully anybody that's listening out there, like you can resonate with it, that you are not like, quit holding yourself back on the dumbest stuff possible.
Yeah, it's if I'm going to take a risk, why wouldn't I take it when the stakes are the lowest?
Yeah.
And worst case scenario, I just have a great experience that maybe influences how I think about the world. And if it's only that, how wonderful. It's an underrated time in your life where I really should bet on me. Yeah. I should bet on something new.
December 2012, going for the blitz. Get to McAllen. We're learning the script. We're going throughout these hotel rooms. We're practicing the script. And I was just like, get me in the field. We shadowed our manager one day, and he sold a deal with 9 of us on his hit. And I was like, bro, that was easy. We can do this stuff. And I'm talking with my roommates, the guys that we had drove down with. His name was Frank Sabo. He was a lawyer in McAllen, Texas. I'll never forget it. And the daughter had opened the door.
Brought the troops.
The daughter opened the door. He said a comeback. We came back. It was dark too. And it's so funny. This is a season for a lot of door knockers where it gets dark and we're stopping. We knocked on this guy's door. It must have been 7, 8 o'clock at night, which is dark in McAllen, on the border, whatever. Not a safe area, not some place where they want to be opening up the door to a party on their doorstep. And he got inside. We transacted with him. He's same day the deal. And I was like, dude, take us out. We saw that one door. We were out the next day, me and all the guys. Funny enough, I get dropped off in my neighborhood. And guys will call it what they may. The worst people in our industry are the critics that never have done it, that bash stuff. And we'll get to what I mean by it. But like guys that sell big numbers, they're like, what are they doing? What are they're cheating. It's shut the hell up. They're working really hard and they just are doing things that you aren't doing. But to going back to that, first door I knocked, he was actually a guy, I don't smoke or anything. But this guy, I was walking down the street nervous as shit. And I'm like, you know what? I need to find somebody to talk to. So I'm like, there's a guy outside in his robe. He was a principal. It was a day off. And I walk up to him and he's smoking a cig. And I didn't even know how to pitch or talk or nothing. I didn't know how paperwork worked. And he's, yeah, dude, come on up. And we just started being me. And I just told him what I'm doing. The stars aligned. The guy had Vivint another home. I sold my first door I ever talked to. I didn't knock the door, so I guess I didn't knock it technically. But the first person outside I talked to, I sold them. I was the first deal on that blitz. I didn't sell the rest of the week because I was on cloud 9. I was like, $500, dude. I'm done, baby. This is all I needed. So it set me up to where the trials were coming. Because anybody that comes, if you're in this industry or you're in sales and you get that early success, it's just a matter of time before the downticks come. So I did the first sale, one sale, the first blitz. Went back to school, spring break. Again, a lot of guys want to make excuses. We had this. It's my junior year. I have a trip I need to go to. We had a trip planned. This job came up. I was like, I'm going to cancel the trip. I'm going to go on this sales trip. So we went to Houston. And I knocked in Houston. I sold 2 deals that week. So I did 1, my first blitz, 2, my second blitz. As soon as school got out, we didn't go home. I didn't go say bye to my family. I'm not leaving forever. Like these notion that everything's got to be perfect for them to leave. Nothing was perfect. I was moving out of the dorms. I didn't know where shit was. I was just like throwing stuff in the car and we just took off to Texas. And then that first summer was a reality check. Let me tell you, we thought the job was going to be easy. And we started with probably 50. There was probably about 40 or 50 of us in that office that first summer. And by the end of it, withered away to probably about 50% of that. But I ended up selling 33 my first summer funded. And it was the top of the pack.
That's above average.
Yeah, it was the top of the pack. I always tried to be, Chris Wooten had beat me on that summer, which I took personal. You know, he sold 50, I think it was, or 60. I sold 33. And, you know, for me, 10, 12 grand, whatever I made, I think it was like 15 grand. When you've been outside of those checks, I remember you get a $500 check, you're like, whoo, you get 1,000, you're like, whoo.
And you're 20 or 18 years old, and that's 70% of the amount of money it costs you to live every single month.
It was living the dream, baby.
So do you feel like you got comfortable? Did it cause you to slow down a bit?
I'm a go with the flow kind of guy. So at the time, like I was just going with the flow. I didn't really set goals. I wasn't like trying to push myself again. It went back to what I did in sports. And I was like, I know I have the skills to be a starter. Why aren't I doing it? And so it was funny after that first summer, by the end of it, just like most reps, I was done. Like I was like, nah, like this is going to be a good gig. And at the time we were selling just this basic alarm system. I wouldn't say it was scammy, but it was just not a pitch I was comfortable with. And that's a big thing I stress to all the guys I train on now is just telling the truth and being honest about the whole sales cycle. But at the time, I just wasn't really bought into it. Next summer comes around. Again, most listeners are going to relate to this. That next summer comes around, the money's gone, right? You spent all the money you got made from your back end. You didn't really do anything. You've been stagnant doing schooling or partying or whatever the heck you're doing at college. By the time the summer comes around, I was like, hey, Frank, I think I want to go out. And at this time, Vivint was pivoting. We were doing internet. So I moved to Utah.
Did you?
Yep. I moved to Utah my second summer. So I had just finished my senior year. I had a couple credits I needed to finish, so I didn't officially graduate yet. But again, a lot of guys are trying to figure out this grandiose plan to how they can finish. I was like, dude, I'll get to that. Like that stuff, it's not like I wanted to put on the back burner, but I knew I could take, I was probably like 10 credits short or something like that. I needed one more semester. Right before that second summer, I had met my ex, who I eventually ended up marrying. So I met her 2 weeks before I moved to Utah for the entire summer, and we stayed in touch. We ended up dating pretty quick. But I moved to internet came easy. It was same day sale, pointed to the roof. We get internet like that. It was like an easy breezy sale. We get a sale, we go hike.
How did that summer go? Did you exceed your earnings from the year prior?
I did.
Okay.
I don't know exact numbers on it, but we were top of the pack, 10 to 12 internets a week, which a good internet sale back then I think was paying like $120, $150. So I was making $1,000 checks. I was like, this is great. I was getting in shape. And a big thing for me early on is I always had to justify, and maybe it was a bad thing, but looking back, it helped me through the hard parts. Is so many guys like to look at the spreadsheet at the end of the year. What did I make? What was the money? The debits and credits? What did I spend? What did I take home? What's my take home pay? And for me, I never looked at that. I always looked at, I got a car my second year, and I didn't have a car forever. My whole entire life growing up, I'd always been the guy that's bumming rides off friends. I was younger for my grade, so my friends got licenses first. I was good at getting rides. And that second summer, I didn't make the money per se I wanted to make, but my dad had given me my grandpa's ring and I got this little Honda Civic, and like I was out on my own. I got to see Utah. I got to see another. So I was always progressing, and it wasn't from a financial standpoint at all. I never the money was there, but it was never like it was getting me going. Like I just always knew I had more in me, but at the end of the day, I was always satisfied with it. I was always happy because I knew the input I was putting in, this is what I was getting. Regardless.
And you were content with it?
And that was a double-edged sword for sure.
Where did the paradigm shift come in to who BG is now?
It took a while. It's so funny. So second year, finished that. I went back. I was getting serious with my girl at the time. And everybody at that point was graduating college, and they wanted to move, and they were moving to Dallas, Texas, and that's where we were going to go launch internet out there. It was between Albuquerque and Dallas, funny enough. And we've talked about Albuquerque. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah, that's very tempting, man. Yeah. That's a very hard choice.
Yeah, and so we chose Dallas. But I was going back to school. I was in love at the time. Classes on campus. But I had committed to the ex. I was like, I'm going to go be in Muncie for the summer, or be in Muncie for that following year. I'm going to finish my first semester, graduate, and then I'm going to move to Dallas. She still had one more year to graduate. And by that point, I would be settling for us to come to Dallas after she graduated. So I finished that first semester. I finished that one semester, graduated. I didn't walk. I didn't do any of the freaking hoorah stuff. Like I just give me my paper. I'm out of here, and got it in the mail. I think a couple of years later. I don't even remember where it's at. But I finished the school. Didn't have any classes on campus. I could have been already gone out and got a step ahead. And that first time I got recruited to Vivint, I don't have regrets ever in life, but if I look back at something that could have changed the trajectory, if I would have gone out that first summer, who knows what could have happened. They were in the best market around the best people. These guys were the biggest hitters. They did the most accounts. They won the cup. They won the madness. They won all of the biggest competitions at Vivint. It was the craziest experience of a summer. Our summer, complete opposite.
That was your first summer?
That was my first summer.
Oh, first summer, which was in Dallas?
It was in DFW.
And then you went to Utah.
Yep.
And then your third summer, is this ramping up for your third summer?
Third summer, ramping up. Finished my courses, and then I moved to Dallas with one of my good friends that I recruited, Andy. So we moved to Dallas. It would have been in December of 2015-ish, going into that. And the whole goal was to sell internet. Okay. Rewind a second. When I got my college degree, I went back from that second summer, and I was like, again, this is good. Let me see what else is out there kind of mentality. So I did all of my interviews through Ball State, and I would go sit in these professional interviews, and it was the funniest thing. Every time they'd skip everything. They'd skip the good degree. They'd skip the accolades. Every interview they would ask, tell me about your experience in door-to-door. Every time. And it was so funny. I thought this was just common happenstance. Like at the end of every interview, they're like, hey, do you want to go get lunch? And I'm like, looking back at it, I'm like, why would you just take these guys? Like, you just get lunch with all you? Let's go get lunch. So after every interview, I would get the job. I would go to lunch with the person that was interviewing me. And they're like, you got the job, man. They'd send me the offer. And I was like, what? 40 grand, which is fine. But I was making like 20 to 30 in a summer, like not trying. I looked at it. I was like, okay, I got to maybe just. And these were like the top job offers from our colleges, like the top sales job offers in business and sales. Most of them were sales related.
And so why do you think it always ended up in that way after you met with people for an interview?
It's the same way when you tell somebody when we walked into the interview room and our guy here who's doing all the filming, he's dang door to door, man. Like everyone always has a preconceived notion where it's damn, that's tough. Like, yeah, that's crazy. Tell me more about it. And I love sharing the story about it. So that was something that was just every time they skipped all the stuff and we would just shoot the shit on sales.
It's really a launching pad.
It is.
To become a sales assassin. You go to where they do it at the highest level, where it's all performance based and you're going to the consumer. They're not coming to you. You'll never have to worry about being employed for the rest of your life.
Never.
Because your skill set is one that just garners immense amount of rewards. Would you also do math in your head? Hey, if I do a little bit better, I can double this in a year.
Goes back to justifying.
In
I was like, dude, if I got all of this and I barely tried, what can I do if I actually tried?
And you're getting older, more mature.
Exactly. I'm at this point, I got a serious girlfriend. I'm like, I got big goals I want to hit. You get done with college. You think you're the man at this point. You're like, oh, I can do better than I've always done. I moved to Dallas, and this was like, got all my stuff from Indiana. I'm going to go get settled in. X is going to finish college, and then she's going to hopefully move down with me. So I moved down to Dallas with a good friend of mine. We got a little apartment through the company housing, and the whole goal was to sell internet. Guess what? Just as much as me, K-boshed it. K-bosh. As soon as I get to Dallas, it's K-bosh. I'm like, luckily the doorbell camera came out.
The doorbell camera.
The doorbell.
The flagship product.
That was it, baby. The freaking camera. We had talked about it. I remember in meetings like, dude, they're going to come out with this camera that's at your doorbell. And I remember watching Shark Tank, and they had Doorbot, which was now Ring. And everyone turned down the offer on Ring on Shark Tank. It's the biggest miss out of Shark Tank history for Jamie Siminoff. As a kid, I always loved the cameras. I never had an alarm system growing up, never used one, never even to this day do I arm an alarm system, but I've sold a lot of them.
Thousands.
Yeah, and so it's really funny, but when I moved to Dallas, they kiboshed the internet, so I was like, we're going to sell the doorbell camera. The doorbell camera's cool. It's really fun. Like, we can go out, sell some cameras. And so I did that, and then that summer I did 60 deals. So it was really from December through the end of the, through that next year. So it's not that I did great.
Yeah, December
through October.
The sales year ends September 30th.
Yep.
So you did 60 accounts. That's roughly what, four or five a month?
Yeah. So it's not great by any means, but again, it was better than what I did. I improved. I'm getting better. And at the time, my manager at that point he was still on my side, and I'll share the good, bad, and the ugly throughout this, and just be vulnerable and just telling you things I've done wrong and things people maybe have done me wrong. By the end of that year, my ex had moved to Texas. So we got our own apartment. It was my first get an apartment away from the family in Texas, not on corporate housing. And I had to pay my own rent, all adult move. And this was going into my fourth year. I was in Dallas, and it's so hard when I'm breaking this down. I was thinking about it, and everything gets jumbled because forever I was just 10 years in the business. I would always round up, round down, just keep around 10. But now looking back on it, like to actually break it down. So I did 30 my first year, internet my second year. Third year would have been 60. My fourth year, I did 90. I got just shy of 100. And I was like, I can do this thing. I finally have figured it out. And that's where a lot of my reps are currently, is they think they got it figured out. And that's where we run into a lot of hardships, because at that point, my managers were failing me. Like at the time, I was recruiting these guys in, bringing who I thought were my friends and my people in, and I wasn't getting overrides. And we've heard the story time and time again. Looking back at it, hindsight 2020, I really wasn't adding the value to those reps for them to be paid to me. I took it personal, and it became jaded, and we were very jaded in our office. And there was things that, all parties could have done differently. But that year we finished fourth year. I did 90. X is living with me. She got a job in Dallas. She's working. I'm working. Life's good.
And you didn't come hot out the gates.
No, just a little bit of consistency mixed with some flashes of greatness. Nothing like, I think it took me I'm year 4. I never had sold more than 3 in a day. I had never sold more than 6 in a week is pretty much it. And then going into this had been my 5th year now. So X has moved out. She's moved in with me. We got our own place in Dallas. I did 90. I'm getting closer to that 6-figure mark. Everyone sets that 6-figure mark. And I was like, yeah, I'm almost close to 6 figures. At the time, when you fake it till you make it. I'm making the 6 figures. I really behind the scenes, like it was a struggle. Like I'm paying every bill, every utility, everything, my phone, my da. But going into that 5th year was like, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to do the things that I'm saying I'm not doing. I'm going to show up daily. I'm going to do it without anyone's help. I'm not going to count on my manager. And so it took me getting jaded with him before I took it upon myself to go out there and succeed. And so at this point, we had gone and done a college recruiting. It was my first time recruiting from a college. And so I was recruiting some college kids, and we were going to work in DFW again, in Dallas at this point. I'm living in Arlington. And it was my first summer hitting 150. So this has been year 5, right? 30, internet, 60, 90. Year 5. 150.
And you cleared $100,000.
$100,000. But midsummer, it was July. My regional at the time, they came and pitched us, I'm moving to Colorado. Like, I'm in Dallas. I'm happy. This is great. And then come to find out, another pivot in the career. So my boss comes and he talks to us, and I'm the guy, I'm the optimist. Let's move to Denver. And for me, I was in this mode of let's check something off the list. Let's check another place off. I'm open to it, to my ex. What do you think? And there was times where she wouldn't be on board. She would be on board regardless. And it was something I had to learn. I had to give up everything. Flash forward now, I'm single and all this stuff. And no shade to her on any of it. We were both young, in love, and things happened how they did. But when we moved, it was right around 4th of July, and I was pacing for almost about 200 accounts. I think by July, I was at 130 accounts when we moved. And we still had 2 big months left. They came to us, hey, I want you to move to Denver to pilot a Vivint Plus, which was going to be the combination of solar and smart home. So at this point, I was like, dude, let's do it. And we were just going to work in this solar office in Denver. So I'm looking up places. I ended up moving to Littleton, Colorado. It was across the street from Columbine High School. I didn't go the first time going there was moving there.
Oh,
I didn't go test out the market. I didn't go look around. I didn't go check out I love the next big adventure. And I think going back to, but as a kid, I fought the adventures. My parents were like, we're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. And my parents were the type of people who were driving by a freaking roadside farm or a roadside safari. And they're like, we're going to the safari. You pull over the cavern, we're going to the cave. And most people nowadays, like, you're not going there. We were down for whatever. We wanted to do it. We went to every baseball field growing up throughout the country. So I love the new experience. But going to Colorado, I fell in love, and I love the mountains. I always told myself I would never move. I'll never move. So that summer, I'd moved there. It was me, business partner Chris Wooten at the time, and Frank. And so it was us 3. We'd lost everyone around us. We brought a couple guys with. I brought my cousin with. My brother was working with me at this time. I'd recruited my best friend. So we got a little squad. We have 10 to 12 dudes. We're doing a few hundred accounts as an office. And so I was at 153. I finished that year. So I ended up selling only 20 after the move, where I was on pace to well over 200 accounts. And so that kind of pissed me off a little bit. And then the real jadedness happened with our manager, where he was trying to do his own thing. I was getting pushed out. We all had our own stories being told in our head, where
it caused strain on the relationship.
It did.
That because there was a lack of clarity?
It was clarity, vision. Yeah. Without the vision, people will perish. And I think that's a big thing I'm stressing with my teams now, is just getting very clear and defined on what the future looks like, not the now, because whatever we're doing now is going to change that future. You need to plan. And ideally, I need to be better at planning. But at the end of the day, if you don't execute, the plan don't mean shit. If you're a manager, listen to this especially, the only way to lead your people is inspiring your people. My biggest strength is out in the field, leading the front. And
you're the first one on the board and the last one home.
100%.
Where do you get that from? Because from the first, second, third, fourth summer, you would sell one, then you'd hit the lake. When did all that change?
I did some introspection. Why isn't our business growing? So a big thing that started for me was when I started to get people of my own, and I started to bring guys into the business. I took it upon myself where if all else fails, you can lean on me to know that I'm going to at least inspire you to do the job that you only have to do. But now to grow leaders, like, you have to do it a little bit differently, where you have to have the vision on them growing a team. So we're working on that now. And I'm far from freaking perfect. Are there days that are bad? Of course. Yesterday was a bad day. That was fine. But that's just any job. I'm still not the man yet. I'm still like
I
in
think
Denver.
you're the man.
No, I mean in Denver. So I'm flashing back to going back to there. I'm still not accomplishing what I wanted to. I was never given credit. Everyone says they don't like the credit, but deep down, everyone likes to be told they're doing good. I was seeking that approval, and I hadn't got it yet. And that's that summer when we moved to Denver, I was pissed off. I was my own worst enemy. We moved. And again, we're back in the mountains. I love the mountains. So I'm skiing, I'm snowboarding, I'm getting out to the mountain, I'm getting a sail. I'm doing the same shit I was doing before. And at that time, I worked with the solar team, and Jeff Elder, who actually I just reached out to a couple of days ago, who's a mentor. That was another guy along the path that really helped me with the business as a whole and just being a good man. He led from a place of love versus leading from a place of like benefit. Yeah. He wasn't trying to get stuff. We had this like symbiotic relationship where we would just bring everybody together. Where was there a way to sell them solar and follow up with the alarm, which we figured out over the years. My manager that recruited me, his thing was we moved to Denver. This is the last move. Every pitch, every move was the last move, right? We get to Denver. My buddy's wife, Chris, who's married, he's got a kid at the time or on the way. They're moving again, and they were never wanting to move out of Dallas, and we're moving to Denver. As soon as we get to Denver within a couple months, Frank's not, his planning's taken over, and he thinks that there's a better opportunity. So he wants to go and move to Jacksonville, Florida. And at this point, me and Chris put our foot down. We're like, I'm not moving. I don't care. I'm not moving. You could do whatever you want to do. I really like where I live. The last thing I want to do is another cross-country move to Jacksonville, Florida. So I ended up bringing on my brother, moved out to Denver, along with a lot of my friends, and I had 10 of us. And Chris had a couple guys. So we were co-managing. We were co-managing in Denver. It was about my 6th year at this point. I sold 153. It was that first summer in Denver after we moved, or next year. And I took a step back. I did 110 deals, and I got the 100 mark, which was cool. But I was feeling like I was missing something. My team did a couple hundred accounts. We had average guys. They were making average money. And this is where solar was really coming about. So all of those guys ended up either going to solar or going to a different manager. My brother ended up getting married and going back to Indiana and getting into pursuing full-time ministry. And I was in Denver pretty much with my ex and Chris, and we had a couple guys, and we're just sitting there looking at each other like, what are we doing? What is going on? And I'm pretty much sold out of the business at this point. I'm like, but I still haven't given it my freaking all. I still haven't. And so many people in our industry, they quit right before they find the gold. Right?
Yeah, 3 feet from gold.
Yeah. It's every industry. I don't think it's just our industry. I think anytime you're trying to be a high level at anything, that last part of the struggle is where everything just kind of eventually you get to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But this was a hardship, and I don't want to get too many details because I know Chris and the other guys will be listening, but I'm just going to give you the story and we take it for what it is. And this is from my perspective, so it's no shade on other people. But so we had worked together and we were co-managing. And at this point, Chris was really getting involved with the team out of Vegas. And he's been talking with the leadership there. And the team in Vegas at the time was the team. They were doing the most accounts, #1 GM team, #1 year-round program, #1 rookie, #1 this, #1 that, like all of the accolades. I still want to build this by myself. And I was being stubborn. So Chris had gone on a couple trips to meet up with them. I'm just being average in Denver. I'm just selling, skiing, spending time with like doing my stuff. And meanwhile, Chris was doing what's best for him and his family. And at that point, after that summer where we worked together, which would have been year 6, so after that 110, he had talked to me and I'm going to move to Vegas. You should come with. And I was like, I can't, dude. The ex will.
Another move.
I don't even want to go down that avenue with the girl at the point. She's a hometown girl from Indiana. Last thing she wants to do is another move, and especially to a city like Vegas. And so he ended up going. And it was a sad time because it was one of my best friends. I stood up in his wedding. We had really tried to build it, but it got to that point where it made sense where you had to go out on your own. And I just trusted he's going to go out doing his thing. I'll do my thing. In that transition period, because it's business, there was a fallout, which luckily it came full circle where I'm his biggest fan. And hopefully he's the same for me. He went to Vegas. I stayed in Denver. And I put a chip on my shoulder. And this is where I got the best revenge is massive success. And some people look at it as a negative thing. It's you're the antagonist. For me, it was like I did it out of love, but at the same time, like I was pissed.
Yeah, you were motivated
by pain. I was frustrated, man. I'm still like in my mid-20s.
Unaware of what you don't know.
Yeah. My emotional intelligence is -5. I'm just, you fake it till you make it, put on the freaking the badge and get out. Yeah, get to work. So I just did the only thing I knew, and I just went back to work. And I stayed meeting with the Colorado team. And I had recruited some guys here and there. I was getting some guys. I was working with this solar team. I was doing my own thing. I just didn't have any vision. I was trying to plan and trying to see what the move was. Flash forward, I stayed in Denver that summer. And I was like, I think we need to change. And my buddy Brandon, who was my best friend at the time and still is, he was the mediator between me and the ex, where if we had to bring up a move or a big idea, it was a little bit safer because I had just put her through all of these moves and all of this stuff, to where it was a little bit easier to have that mediator there. And I was like, what can our move be? And so we had the Vegas thing on the table. She always wanted to be back in Indiana. I always told myself I never wanted to move out of Colorado. Last place I wanted to move was Indiana. And when we'd sat down, we had this hard conversation, and we were set to get married. This would have been in like 7th year in the business, 2019-ish, I think, right around there, 2019, 2018. And I finally bit the bullet. I'm willing to move out of Denver. We'll move to Indiana, but I need to run a summer. And they brought up the opportunity to go to El Paso. So we packed up all of our stuff from Colorado, picked up a U-Haul, and moved it to Indiana. And I was going to go to El Paso. She was going to stay in Indiana, plan the wedding, do all that stuff. And I was going to run my first team alone. And so I went to Ball State, my alma mater. The only thing I knew, I just recruited 10 guys on my own. I sat through all these interviews and not fake them, but I had to sell from a person I wanted to be, not from the person I was. So I was selling through accolades of other managers, other people around me. It's like, again, it goes back to execution. If you can just execute on it, fail forward for me was a big thing. And so I chose to fail forward, but we move everything back to Indiana. We're living with her parents at this time. And I'm moving to El Paso to go run a team in El Paso. I've never ran a team alone. I'm like, let's do this. So I recruit 10 guys again. When I go to El Paso, and I have me and 10 rookies. We were meeting in an office, and we're doing it, man. We're doing it. And it was the most I've learned production-wise. It was stagnant. It was at that 110. I sold probably 110. I had to leave early because we were getting married in September. So like by the end of summer, I didn't do extensions. So I sold over 100. My team did the most I've done alone, which is probably 400 accounts, which is some guys are doing that alone now. So it wasn't like a big thing, but I wasn't comparing it. That was the best I can do. And I was happy with it. And I was like, I'm going to move back to Indiana after this summer, and I'm going to start this team in Indiana. Make her happy, do this. And so we got married. We did all of that.
What were some of those early lessons in management for you? You are the vet that needs to perform. You need to inspire. There's no other alternative reinforcing voice in those meetings besides yours.
No one was going to do it for me is really what it came down to. Before, I didn't have to run meetings. I didn't have to do all this stuff. There was no one to rely on. And if you're going to bitch to somebody, you're going to bitch this to a manager that's not in the market with you just to complain. I'm just not a complainer. So instead of complaining, I was pissed. The market wasn't what I expected it to be when I first got there.
It never is.
Yeah, it never is. I got there, I bageled the first week. We get there, and I'm like, the vet, and I bagel. And I'm like, dude, this shit is going to suck.
And you've got 10 guys.
10 guys.
Who left their families, their opportunities, maybe.
They're all college
their
students,
fun
man. They had
days by the lake.
Yep.
And they followed you. So when you bagel for the first week, because this is an intense experience, it's the refiner's fire. It's unless I go out and change something in week 2, I could lose everybody.
You feel every emotion, crying, you're happy, you're mad. At the time, I'm preparing for a wedding. My ex is preparing for a wedding, all of these pressures.
Yeah, you're apart from your loved one.
And that's where I just get so fired up with guys that have their story so written out, that their struggle is their problem. And it's stop with the baby shit.
Yeah.
It's no one. Sadly enough, they don't care. No one cares about that. And it's not to say from a mean standpoint of the world. It's just reality. Sometimes it's taking that pill of reality. It helped me because I was like, okay, I don't have an out. I'm not going to bitch. I'm not going to complain. What can I do to pivot? So we moved to a different side of the city. And next thing, it ends up being my favorite market, right? So after the worst times is the best times. We're throwing in accounts. I'm finally getting accolades. I'm doing it on my own. I'm seeing
guys have a reinvigorated belief in themselves and in you and in the plan.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how the game is dynamic?
So funny.
When you think you're down and you're underwater, if you just persist, the sun will shine again. And was that one of your best summers up to this point or no?
No. So still my best summer was the 153 in Dallas.
But from a management perspective.
This was my first time.
It was very formative. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I'm getting updates on my Snapchat now of pictures of these recruiting meetings I would go in. And I went to college. I went to the campus twice and I did all my interviews, Zoom calls. And I had this tracking board and I flew them out. And a guy had called me this morning, actually. It's funny enough. And it's cold where he's knocking, and he's, what do I do when it's cold? I'm just cold, bro. I'm bitching, complaining. I'm being a baby. Give me some motivation. I sent him a video, and it was the first blitz of the kids I had on that summer where we're going to El Paso. I was still in Colorado at that point, so I had them fly out for their spring break blitz, and it was a snowstorm. So I had 4 reps living with me in my 1-bedroom apartment, or 5 reps, college students. I've never met them. They're all college kids living with me and my ex in my apartment, and it's a snowstorm. And I'm like, what the hell are we going to? I sold with them on my hip in a snowstorm. I'll send them the video. We're walking out. It's freaking blizzard and we got a sale. And I was fired up. I was like, okay, this can work. This can work. So they go back to school. They had to finish up, and I'm going to meet them in El Paso in a couple months.
And had you not gone out in that blizzard, in that snowstorm, you probably wouldn't have ever been able to demonstrate that this actually works.
Never.
So it's never convenient.
Never.
The
least
results
convenient.
always come after the reasons for taking action.
Yeah.
And how crazy in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
With guys that you didn't know who were staying with you.
And I think one or two of the kids got a sail that week. It was tough. I'm a fun guy, so I'll make the experience fun no matter what. I've always been the guy that's a host. Yeah. We're infectious
Glass
with that.
Always half full.
Always.
Even
no
if
matter
it's
what.
30 degrees and you're in a blizzard.
We're in Colorado. We got the mountains, baby. We'll entertain
But you still find a way to pull the rabbit out of the hat.
Yep.
And that's what leaders do.
Yep. That was a big thing. So going to El Paso, learned so much. The earnings that we have the saying, and you've heard it, Mendez, is just keep the learning ahead of the earning. And for me, it was all about that. It was like, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do meetings run? What's a good way to do it? What's a good way to run an incentive? What's a good way for me to get my personal production up? Still at this point, I don't have any, I've never sold more than 7 in a week. I think at this point, I've never sold more than 2 in a day. And I'm still just getting by, but I'm finally out on my own. So I'm prideful. We finished that summer. Let's call it 400, 500 accounts as an office. And I did a fourth of those. And so my guys sprinkled in a couple deals. I got an override check. So I was like, okay, this is how recruiting works and how you actually get paid. I didn't have anyone to blame for my results. Before, I had people to blame. It was a little bit of the manager did this. That's what caused me to do this. My best friend did this. That's what caused me to do this. Dude, my results were my inputs. I wouldn't say dark time because I got done with that summer and I moved back to Indiana. And that's where the darkness had, it wasn't dark. It was just a stagnant time in my life where I had all these hopes coming off of my first year. I'm gonna move back to Indiana. We're going to start this big team in Indianapolis and everything's going to go good. We're going to get married. We're going to have kids. We're going to have a family. Going to, be close to the fam. Going to have business kicking it. And this is the first time I did a move for the significant other where we'll be back close to your family and we'll do this. Flash forward, right? So we finish, we get married in September. I'm recruiting and we end up moving in with her best friend in Indianapolis as a temporary spot. And it was that stuck feeling where I just didn't really want to work. I felt at the same time, Chris, who had moved to Vegas, he was crushing it. Top rookie in the company, all the accolades that I was seeking, he had gotten them. And I'm like, what the crap is going on, man? And I was just pissed off. And it finally got to, I think me and the ex I don't remember how it all transpired. But JT, who had been working with Wooten at the time, was like, dude, you should come out and blitz with us. And at this point, me and Chris have never talked still. This is going on a couple of years. But JT had reached out and was like, hey, you should come out and blitz with us. And I was like, dude, and I had not sold. It's January at this point. I just got married. I got off my best years as my own self-manager. And it's into January, right around this time, December, January. And they'll come blitz with us. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Through the biggest inconvenience comes the freaking reward. So I ended up going out and blitzing with them, and I just put a chip on my shoulder. I was like, I'm going to crush these mofos no matter what. And I don't remember exactly what I did in the blitz, but I know I did well. And at that point, I had met a guy in El Paso who is a beast. He's the best guy I've ever worked with. And we became best friends, and I recruited him right at the end of summer, right before I was getting married. And he'd done 6 in a week his first week. And I was like, dude, my reps are doing 2 to 3. It's your first week. You did 6. I got to stay in touch with this guy. But when you're getting married, you're leaving a summer market, the kid's a local. You just don't think about it. But we always stayed in touch. And when I was going on this blitz, I was like, David, you should meet up with me. You should come on this blitz. So we go on the blitz. We crush the blitz. We go back. He goes back to El Paso. I'm back in Indiana. And we're trying to figure out what this next year is going to look like. And at this point, living with her best friend, she was stagnant. We just didn't like Indiana. We've lived in all these beautiful places across the country. I just wasn't sold on forever living in Indiana. And I was always... my environment's a big thing for me, being around what I love, being around people I love. And for me there, I was just, it's this gray, right? I couldn't wake up and see the sun. I was cold. And these are all excuses, but in retrospect, it did initiate that me wanting to make a change. So we had talked about it. They're like, dude, move to Vegas this summer. And I'm, JT, that ain't gonna happen, bro. There's no way. I ended up bringing it up to her. And out of all the moves, she was down for it because I think at that point she was feeling maybe Indiana isn't the place for us. And I was super pumped. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I didn't even think twice about it. We're going to move to Vegas this summer. Or this prior to summer. It would have been in May. I don't know. So the day we packed up, I rented a car. She had our other car. We had 2 cats, 2 guinea pigs, each other, and we're driving the day that Kobe dies in a plane crash is the day we drive to Vegas. So whatever date that is, that's where we're at.
Oh, that was 2020.
2020.
That was right before COVID.
Right before COVID, right? So I'm moving to Vegas the day Kobe dies. It was like a culture shock for us. Me being a sports guy again goes back to us. Like it hit home, and I'm just doing this drive to Vegas, and we're following each other. I remember we have these freaking walkie-talkies, and we're like walkie-talkieing every so often, and we're making our pit stops, and we get to Colorado, and there's a snowstorm, and I'm hauling up the mountain. If you've driven in Colorado in the mountains, and if you're getting toward Breckenridge, it's treacherous. And I remember those whiteout conditions, and I'm pushing her to drive a little bit further, and it was a mistake, and we almost freaking get stuck in this blizzard. We get to Vegas. We move into a little Airbnb. We're just prepping for what that summer is going to look like. And at that point, I convinced David, that rep I met in El Paso, move to Vegas with me, bro. What do you got to lose? You're doing sod. I'm doing this. We both hate it. Let's just both go do what we don't necessarily want to do and move. Because he didn't want to move.
And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes a radical change in environment.
Yep. And a big thing I've learned throughout my moves is never say never. I always put these parameters up. I'm never going to move. I'm never going to do this. I've stopped that over the years because change is the only constant.
Yeah, and it's adaptation that guarantees the success.
100%.
And you want to have strong opinions, just loosely held. Always be willing to update what you think about something and not leave yourself out of rooms because you refuse to walk out of doors that you've walked through.
And that was a big thing I've always loved about you, Sam, is you've been one to on the forefront of the pivots. Whether it was when I was in El Paso, the first time I seen Sam Stratford, I remember I was knocking Santa Teresa, New Mexico, and I see the Sam Stratford. I was like, go on your pictures, and this dude's in Hawaii and doing this. Who is this stud, dude? That was like where the Sam story started, but you were always on the forefront of, you were pivoting with solar, pivoting with this, and now where we're at in our career now, you're always open to not the next best thing, but you're not closed-minded on it.
No. Back when you started, there were a multitude of alarm companies. What is it that kept you here, man?
It's a mistake that a lot of reps make. They think that changing the opportunity is going to change them. And at the end of the day, I knew if I wouldn't have given it my all to what I'm doing here, it doesn't matter what the hat I'm wearing is. It wouldn't matter. It's if I would have pivoted to another opportunity, and I've had them throughout the years on every one of those companies. They've talked to me. You see the big flashy sign-on bonuses, all the stuff that they do. Is we would always try not to recruit jumpers, we call them. Guys that were jumping from jumping to jumping. And we all know them. They're all out there. And then it's in every career path. These guys that jump and go to different companies when the grass is greener. That underlying thing for most people is they overestimate a year, they underestimate 5. So for me, I was already so committed. I'd still not really scratched the surface. I've scratched the surface, but I'm not at all where I thought I can be from a production standpoint, from an income potential, from management skills. Changing ain't going to do nothing. If I don't figure it out here, changing it just because they're going to give me a title. So many people nowadays are seeking these titles, which is the corniest shit ever. It's screw the title, go throw the work in, give it your all. And at that point, if you've given it your all and you're not getting the financial benefits or you're not getting the accolades or you're not getting whatever it is that speaks your love language in business, then yeah, maybe it's time. For me, I've always gotten the things that I've deserved and I've earned. So I never wanted handouts. I never was one to ask for stuff. And most of the time, it's a flaw to some and a strength to others. I took the losses to the chin. And like most people where they should have quit, I just took them to the chin.
You get paid based off of the degree of pain you're willing to absorb. So you get to Vegas. We deviated a bit from the story here, but bring us back to where you were. You were with your rep.
Yep.
You relocate. You're in Vegas. You moved your wife, right? Your soon-to-be wife.
No, we're married at this point.
You're married at this point a 5th time.
Yep. Yeah. Lovely. So we get there, right? David's crushing. I'm crushing. We're doing good. And then we all know what happens. It's COVID. Another freaking change. And we're in the hospitality capital of the world. There's no knocking doors when people don't have jobs. There was some of these markets where people are getting to work from home. We can't work here. I was a Suedo manager, so I was me managing my guys. So I was just running my org within the greater org of the GM, the Vegas team. So I would still go to the meetings. We would still, lead from the front. But I had my own guys that I was in charge of. Chris had his own. Jeremy had his own. And at this point, Chris, the year prior, had recruited the best rookie at Vivint. He had sold the most accounts. He had won on the dream team, won all these accolades that I was talking about earlier. And I had to go there and just humble myself. And it was rough. A lot of sleepless nights of just like, dude, is this worth it? Am I going to be able to beat these people? Am I going to be able to live up to my own? I wasn't competing with them per se. I was just really competing with myself because I know if I competed with myself, I can do the things I'm saying I can do. So comparison is the thief of joy. So if I just sat there and just talked about all the stuff that Chris was doing or these other managers were doing, I would just be jaded. And so I just chose to come at it from me and Dave are going to do the best we could. And we got locked in. And me and Dave, this is where we really started to run. COVID happens. We're recruiting a team. We're living in Vegas. We got momentum. And then the doors, you're done, bud. The doors, you can't work. You can't work. The whole world's going through this change. The world's freaking out. I'm moved away from the country. I'm living in this Airbnb. I got these 2 cats, guinea pig, a wife. She's not working. I'm sole provider. And at this point, I've made money, spent money, made money, spent money. I don't have a savings. There's 5 to 10 G's. I know if I eat what I kill. If I needed to go out there and get money, I'd go out there, make a deal, and I could stay ahead. And I had help from my leadership at the point. JT and other guys were helping me get on my feet in certain places. But then when COVID happened, the next conversation was, where are we moving to? And it's just, oh my gosh. And a greater part of this, and me not being with my ex now, is, there's no sane person is going to want to go through all this. So again, there's no shade, there's no bad blood, and all these things have happened for a reason. Anything that's happened to me is my own. And that extreme ownership is super important. I've talked about that with other managers and other reps too. The second you're blaming, like the second you're done for. But we were close to Arizona. No one's knocked Arizona, right? It's a summer. It's 120 degrees. Like no one wants to go knock in Arizona. We didn't really have an option. At this point, it was more of a Republican state, so the masks mandates weren't as big. The lockdown wasn't as bad. We saw an opportunity there. We blitzed it, crushed it. We had, at this point, 20, 30 reps, and we were humming. We were actually doing the numbers. I remember our first blitz out there, we did 150 in a week. And 150 in a week.
People do that in a month.
As in a month, yeah.
People do that in 2 months.
Yeah, and for me going into that, it took me, that was my full summer, like selling 100. I'd never seen a week over 20 in a week for a whole office. Power proximity is working. All the stuff that people are preaching about, this is what's working. And I'm selling at this point now double digits finally. I've finally got my first 10 week under my belt. I finally have sold more than 2 in a day. I used to know it all, but now I was applying the knowledge. We did that, and then we're still living in Vegas, blitzing Arizona. And then by the time the summer came around, COVID's freaking full steam, baby. Full steam ahead, COVID. We drafted Arizona, and we were going to work in Arizona that summer. Okay. And that was when we had our biggest year as a team. We did 2,000 accounts.
Well, why is it that things worked out to the degree they did then versus other summers?
The only word that comes to mind when and people ask me, it's just consistency. They want a grandiose answer, and it's literally we were just consistent. We showed up every day when we didn't want to. We showed up the days extra when we wanted to. And it was fun doing with a group of individuals that were all like-minded. We all had the same intent, and the whole world's closed, right? We're out there doing what people are thinking possible. Like we would knock on doors, and COVID wasn't even a thing. It was like a breath of fresh air, like meeting someone at their own home, and they were just comfortable. The whole world's telling them be scared, and then you just got big old BGs just coming to sell you an alarm on a random Tuesday afternoon. I want people, so people will make the notion too. It's you're lucky it was COVID. At the time, nothing was lucky to be COVID.
Yeah,
right?
Everybody who says that are people who can't do it for themselves.
That's it.
So they have to find a way to discredit you for the success you've had.
And so we were in Arizona, and the whole goal was be in Arizona. We're going to run the summer in Arizona. We're moving back to Vegas. The pitch to the ex at the point was like, hey, it's just a summer. And she came with, so we moved, did the summer, summer.
This is the 7th move, man.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
We're still getting warmed up,
so
baby.
Resilient. So many people would look at that and be like, nope, not for me. And that's likely why you are in the top 1%.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, no, it's true.
It is true, because if we don't highlight this, I think listeners will miss the point. And I don't know who said it. It's been said before, is if you want to use reason to have rewards that you haven't had before, you will have to be unreasonable. Because reason is a function of consensus. It's a function of what the average folk, which is the majority of people, compile their thoughts and feelings, and they all agree with one another. But when you want something extraordinary, you are going to be likely alone, doing something for a long period of time, unrecognized.
Yeah, there is a lot of time in that journey where it's like, there ain't no one here. There ain't no one else to bail you out. It's like my time in El Paso. No one's going to bail me out. Write the story that you want to write here. And there's so many cliches with motivation, which is funny, which I love because I love the motivational side of things. I don't want to say obvious because the things we've talked about earlier were far from obvious for a new rep. But if you've listened to enough, or if you're a product of a person that's learning a lot, like it becomes obvious what you need to do. And that's where I talk to my reps about is just being honest with yourself. And if you could be honest with yourself, the quicker you're going to get over that next hurdle that's going to come your way, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we get done with COVID summer, have our best breakout year, right? Yes. So breakout year, got to move back to Vegas.
Huge breakout year.
Yeah. So I'm them 2 years into marriage. I made at this point, like it was multiple six figures. I think I sold like a little bit over 200 at this point. My downline probably did in the 700 realm, something like that, almost 1,000. As a full office between all the other managers, we did 3,000 accounts. And we were top office in the company, like you said, top management group, all that stuff. I got to go up on stage, take my trophy and be proud of it. Short-lived. That's it's here today, gone tomorrow. Now looking back, it's like, oh shit, a lot of work just for this. Yep, back to it. So the board's zero again. By the time you get the trophy, the board's already zero. You're already behind usually by the time the trophy comes out. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, I still didn't get it. Like I still wasn't.
Oh, you still felt like there was more in the tank?
There was, yeah. And I think more than ever, I tasted it now. Because now it's, okay, Brian, you finally proved yourself a little bit, buddy. You're doing good. COVID summer. At this point, I'm selling hundreds of accounts. That summer I did, oh no, it's the following. No, it would have been that summer I did 28 in a week. I did 10 in a day. So all of these.
10 in a day.
10, and I did 8.
How do you unlock levels of performance like that? Please. If you can get tactical and ultra specific on this,
yeah.
I think this is what's going to really help listeners.
There's a phrase, I forget what the phrase is. It's, who's the buddy that's been killing it at Vivint lately? Young cat. He talked about it recently and it resonated. He has an unrealistic belief in what he can achieve. And at that point in my career, I had believed for so long that I could be the best, that I could be a starter, that I could do all of this stuff. And I was finally seeing it and I was like, okay, so if I'm close to it, and so many reps that are listening to this, if you're listening to this right now, tune in. Because if you've sold 100 in a year, you could sell 300. If you've sold 50 solar accounts, you could sell 300 solar accounts. I was a lot better as a 6-man than a starter at the time. Like I was a lot better coming off the bench. I always played up to my competition. I was never good as the starter on the B team. I was a lot better as the bench guy in the A team, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So like getting around that power proximity, it drove me to believe in myself like a ridiculous amount, like where I was like, dude, no one's going to say no. I'm going to be able to do this. No questions asked. And so going back to where those reps are at that are at those, they feel like they're the peak of their careers. And it's where so many people, and the peak's really here. They're at this peak and they think they've made it. And they stop doing the things that got them to this peak, right? Because they're at this peak. They think they don't need to, they're better than showing up daily. They're better than having to work late night. They're better than having to push themselves past comfort. And so we were working until it gets dark at 6 o'clock. We're working till 9 o'clock, right? I had never even fathomed knocking a fresh door at 8:30 at night. But because the power proximity of the people around me, because of my, unrealistic belief, we were knocking doors. And I have pictures from this week, like couple of years ago where we're selling doors at 9:30 at night of people we've never talked to. From an outsider looking in, it's not possible, right? It's like you talk to my reps that are even out now, it's dude at 6:30, 7 o'clock, it's too dark for that. But we were unrealistically just positive about it. We knew we can achieve it. And so my challenge would be for those people that are at what they feel like is their high point in their career, there's more. And the only way to get it for me at that point was being consistent, not letting up the gas when I thought I had it. So I had got to 8 on that day. And Kenny texted me like, shout out.
And what time was it?
8 o'clock.
I think I remember
it was 8 o'clock.
Seeing that in the thread.
It was 8 o'clock.
It was 8 o'clock at night.
And I was at 8.
You had already exceeded your PR.
Dude, I sold more that day than I did that week.
By double?
My best week up prior to that was 9. My best day was 4.
Was 4. But then you go and you're like, no, the work is not done.
I had people, I was like, I got back in the car, I was so dead. And at this point, we have our group message, right? I send it out, I get my little feeling of gratitude, and faith comes back into it. That's what pushed me at this point. And I turn on the radio, and I like jam K-Love. I get in the car, and it was some cliche song about, you got one more track or something. I'm like, is this God talking to me? Is this just a coincidence? Let's just see, right? Let's just see. So I had sold a deal at 8, and the tech was on site, and I was like, I'm just going to go knock this neighbor. It's dark out. I go knock the neighbor. He lets me ride in, and it's a lay down. If I wouldn't have got out the car to do that one, I wouldn't have done it any other day because I already hit 8. I made the most money I've made in a week by far. My team crushed it. We're winning all the competitions. You just name the checklist of all these reasons why I can justify stopping. And the same reasons why you don't justify stopping when you're not getting the reward is the same thing I did when I had the reward. So I was trying to go back to, okay, if I'm bageling right now, I would still keep knocking. So why do I stop now that I'm at 8? Next door I sell 9. It's 9:30 at this point, 9:15, I think, between 9 and 9:30. And I had talked to this miss earlier in the week. I needed to catch her husband. And she was a truck driver. And I'm driving by. If they're home, I'm going to knock it. If not, I'm not going to knock it. And I've been looking for this truck all week. And she's still parking in the driveway. And I remember I pulled up and I'm sitting there and I'm just put 9. Everyone's, what the hell is going on? And I pull up in front of the house and the truck wasn't there. And I was like, damn, I'm just going to go knock it. Whatever. I'm here. The mofo ended up parking in the garage that night. He was home. He's like, come inside, dude. Done. 10. That was 10.
Wow.
I ended up selling it.
So he was waiting for you.
He was waiting. He was literally waiting. He's like, yeah, wife's been telling me you've been coming by. I'm glad you came. It's so late. And at this point, I mean, you're coming off 9 deals. You're
feeling unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
10 in a day is insane. 10 in a day. Can you tell us what is it that nets?
At that point, we didn't get paid what we get paid now, but it was still right around $8,000 to $9,000.
$8,000 to $9,000 in one day.
Yeah.
And that week you had sold 20?
18. So 18. I was at 8 going into 18. That day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a good week.
That's an exceptional week. Yeah. You made more money than people make in a month or 2 or 3.
And again, it wasn't
in 1 week.
If you're going for the money, that's the worst part about money. Because everyone that's got money doesn't care about money. Everyone that doesn't have money wants money. But if you're wanting something that the people that have it don't care about it, what are we actually wanting? You're really wanting the growth and the personal development in it, but you just don't know how to say it. That's really what you're wanting. I know all these reps, and you've seen it, I've seen it, whether it's leaders that have came through the door, young cats that have came through the door and just been, we see more potential in them than they see in themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I just want to make $20,000. And it's so funny. You're so cute. Let's make you 20,000. And we make them the 20. And then they're like, I want to make 50. And it's never good enough. This year, I passed a big accolade for me in earnings. And I was like, never, another level, another devil, more money, more problems. You don't care about the money. You care about your peace. You care about your progress. You care about your personal, the achievement. That was what really drove me. So yeah, the 18 week was surreal. And the next week I followed it up. I did 20. And so that month I sold 60 that month is what I ended up selling, which was my best month. It was like 57, I think is what it was.
Dude, that's killer. And is it boiled down to what you're saying or tactic or strategy? Or do you think you could have done that with your skill basis and your knowledge basis earlier?
Yes. I self-sabotaged a lot, where instead of using the story I was telling myself as fuel, when you're in the pit, it's easy right now to tell you, oh, I used all of those things that were going against me to my benefit. When you're in the midst of the battle, I'm not going to be naive and lie and tell you what you want to hear. It's like, I struggled. I sucked and I was pissed off and I let myself down and I felt a type of way, but I never stayed in that place for too long. But to answer your question, I think I needed all of those failures early on to really make it to where it looked easy when it came. It's the painting analogy or whatever that it takes the shots put up in the gym. It's, you don't see the real work, or the freaking Usain Bolt. That's I run 8 seconds, but I ran for 5 years.
We glorify people at their peak and not what it took to get there.
BG
was made. BG was forged in just fire.
Yeah, but the fun, it still gets better, baby.
I don't want to interrupt you here.
No.
But if there's a rep listening and he's in your office and he tells you, I can't be successful because of my manager, what would your response be to them?
It's one of the toughest parts for me in the job. I would tell you that you're taking the easy way out, and it's what I did. I blamed my manager. But guess what? Blaming my manager didn't get me anything. It literally just got me a blame at a manager. That was all it was. It gets me jaded. It gets you, and it trickles into everything. It trickled into my relationships, and it's the reason why I'm at where I'm at now. So all of those things were just precursors to it. But if you're that person that's playing the blame game, and most of the time, sadly enough, you're probably valid in the blame sometimes. Even my reps, there's times where they can blame me for something and I'm fully at blame of it. And I take ownership of it, whatever it may be. It doesn't happen often, but it's happened. And it's the easy way out, because all you're doing, you're making yourself feel all right, which is okay. We got to do that a little bit. So if you got to lay a little bit of blame, that's okay. I'm not mad at it. But I would say from that, if you're a person that you're finding yourself, I'm not successful because X, Y, Z, you need to start shifting, and not to what you can change, but what I just operate of a lot more of an abundance mindset, where like it goes back to the unrealistic belief. It's start shifting. It's not like I'm not where I'm at because, it's like I'm at where I'm at because, and I'm grateful for it because. It's like you add another sentence to the end, add the good parts, not just the bad parts. Because yeah, there might be days where a rep feels like I micromanaged them, or I didn't send them this when they needed it, and now they can cast the blame on me. That's true. Okay. But at the end of the day, where are you at? You're still where you're at. So instead of that, it's okay. Number one, extreme ownership. What could I have done differently to not maybe even need the manager in the first place? The only thing a manager's there to do is inspire the people, I feel, from my point of view. The best managers, I think they do that better than anybody. Outside of that, a lot of reps, it's a hard pill for them to swallow when I'm not out or you're not out inspiring on the front lines of knocking anymore. And it's common. It's in business, bro. It's in the guys at the top level of any kind of finance company, or the manager isn't doing the last job they did because they have to manage the people now. And so it's really easy for the sales reps to play the blame game. I just challenge them to see what they could do differently on it. And I wish I had a better, more drawn out answer for it, but it's as hard as you make it.
And that's what the answer is. But I would ask you, how do you manage to build such trust so quickly with a prospect at the door? Because when you're at the door, you aren't necessarily a guest.
I heard it a lot growing up where it's, dang, your son's really nice. Your son, like, I would always want my parents to know that I was nice around other people's parents. Like, I would always use the Mr. Mrs. I would always be respectful. You never ran into troubles. I got guilty by association a lot of times, but I was never the person that initiated whatever trouble we would have gotten into. So for me, the best part about the sale, it's like my favorite part, is breaking preoccupation. It's like how I can interact with you from the jump is going to set the table. And we've heard it from every sales. Great. If they're knowing if they're buying from you, really within the first like 30 seconds of them opening the door, reps will hear that and will be like, yeah, like I had to hit a hot button. Granted, there are cases where like you do have to hit a hot button late in the sales cycle for them to be like, okay, yeah, it does that. I'm a buyer. Let's do it. But for the most part, for me, and all of the people that I know that are high level, they know if they're getting a sale within that first 30 seconds to a minute for the most part, because they know what their buyer looks like. So for me, the biggest applicable skills that can help you out with is a couple things. Number one, it's your look, right? For me, everyone's got their own look. You got to, number one, you can look any way you want to look. You got to be clean. You got to smell good, and you got to do the basics, right? Like the clean shoes, the tucked in look, like being a professional is number one. Because they're seeing me from down the street, 6'3", walking up on them, 250 pounds. And I'm just like smiling ear to ear. And there needs to be that curiosity where they're almost wanting to talk to me as much as I'm wanting to talk to them. And that's a weird mindset because so many reps go into this business where it's, dude, those people don't want to get bugged. The worst conversations I have are with people's reps' parents, where it's a college student. They're like, dude, people are crazy. They're not going to open up the door. It's shush. They open. They love it. We have a great time, and I'm not selling people. I'm making a friend. So that would be the first thing. And that's like an easy one anybody can do. And don't underrate it. Look good, feel good, sell good is the realest thing ever. That's 5%, but it needs to be important. And you feel it with people, dude. And this is funny. I don't know Chris Marsh personally, but Chris is a guy that kills it in our industry. Yeah. I remember we went to Mexico for one of our year-end trips. And the dude it had a presence, right? You have that presence about you. So if you don't have your presence or you feel like no one wants to talk with me, no, flip the script. Why aren't they wanting to talk to you? And let's change some of those things. Because the best thing about business and the best thing about the doors is you can be anyone you want to be. So if you can't fake it out there to people that you're never going to see again, the people that are at your home front, your loved ones, your significant others, like they're definitely not going to like that person. But if you can just start to like yourselves and be however you want to be out there, that's a step in the right direction. I'm walking up, I'm feeling myself, I'm feeling good, I'm looking good, I'm confident. It's not every day that I'm feeling that way, but like I try to set that's the baseline. And then from there, it's, you got to be human, man. You got to be, it's not going up and pitching. It's, dude, if I walk up and I see a Bears flag in their freaking front yard, it's, dude, who's the damn Bears fan in this house? Or a Green Bay Packers fan? It's not, befriend them. Let's be on their side. Dude, I'm a Bears fan. Who's a Packers fan? We got to brawl. I'm not coming up with these one-liners of, hey, I'm a Brian. I'm sales rep with Vivint. This is what I sell. It's no. I'm going up and I'm like almost like a stand-up comedian type deal. We got to go up and we got to get them laughing because people that are happy, they buy, and people that trust you, they're genuinely happy with it. So I want them to be happy. I want the whole experience to be happy. And I think that's why the doors have became an escape from serious stuff that went on in my life outside of just the job. And it got me through a lot of hard times. So it became like the gym. It became your happy place. And I think a lot of guys fight being at their happy place. I had a rep. He was a top rookie. He had sold 12 in a week as a rookie, which was like, I was like, bro, if you just knew my story and it took me 7 years just to like even sniff 10, the fact you did it your rookie year, like you are so good. But he hit me up and he wants to come back. You've done it for 12 years. What keeps you motivated? The doors are so dumb. Like, why do you like the doors? I'm like, that was the problem. He just said it all right there. He's putting this power in something that has no power, dude. You're talking to your neighbors at their house, dude. We like to overcomplicate things, and it's my biggest frustration because everything's as hard as we make it. Mm-hmm. It literally is as hard as you make it. The reality is you've all gone and asked your neighbor for a freaking carton of eggs. You've all, hey, go over to Pat's house and get this from her, your parents growing up, whatever it is. And at the time, it's uncomfortable. It's like, I don't want to go to Pat's house and ask her for egg, but it's, oh yeah, Brian, come inside. How are you doing? And it's great.
Is it because people put so much pressure on themselves that they can't be them?
Yeah.
And so they carry with them just this immense amount of anxiety throughout their day of, oh, am I going to disappoint people? Or most importantly, am I going to disappoint myself? Because I care so much about the way this goes that I actually can't even interact with this moment for it just being a moment. But my opinion or what's in it for me is something that I yearn for so much that when it doesn't happen, emotionally, they just fall from a 10-story building.
They do.
So now when you go out to the door, you actually play as if you're relaxed.
Yeah.
You hang on, but very loosely.
I love it. It's just the game we play. My best days are the ones where I'm the happiest and I'm just radiating. I love me. I love myself. I love like the product,
service, the brand you've repped.
And the underlying factor of all that too is there's a lot of issues with all of it. I'm not perfect, but I love it. You're having to, I hate that my mom used to say, fake it till you make it. And there is a truth in that, but we don't want to get away from, I don't want it to be the fake it till you make it that we see on social media where they post one thing and do another. That's the wrong
contradiction.
The contradiction. It's not
double standard.
Do as I do, not as I say, or do as I say, not as I do. Mm-hmm. So it's not that, but there has to be a level of almost like you're ignorant to what's going on around you, the bad stuff, because you have to be you have to have a lot of charisma. You have to have a lot of energy. You have to have that stuff. And everything you do to take away from that, whether you know it or not, it's going to be felt. And my first summer, I learned a hard lesson on that where I was killing it 5 my first week, 5 my second week, 5 my third week, had to cancel. Dramatic event. Wrote a bad review. The freaking AC was blown. I didn't sell for 5 weeks, middle of my first summer. That's why I finished with 33. I was like 15 by the first 3 weeks. And by that cancel happened, and everyone would come to me, like every rep, Brian, you just got to shake that off. And what does every rep do, Sam?
They do the exact opposite.
They're just like, yeah, I'm shook. I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. It's not about that.
If you were fine, why did it take you 5 weeks to sell?
Exactly. So now going back, I can see that and I can lean on that story. So that failure at the time where I hated, like I was so pissed off, wouldn't tell anybody. I don't even think I knew it to myself, but I was just so angry and I blamed everything, was actually the greatest thing that helped me later on in my career.
What you're saying here is people can become more charismatic, more likable by just being themselves.
That's it. If you can be yourself, dude. And it starts, I think, too, you have to have the belief in your product and the knowledge. So there's nothing that anybody can tell me behind a door that I haven't already heard or I don't have a response to. So it's being that preparedness. So to go off of obviously your looks, your appearance, your feelings, but then the next thing is your preparedness. And the worst reps are the ones that are ultra confident, ultra studs, and we all know them. They're the Division I athlete that literally they get into this business, they get humbled, man, because they're not that person out there.
Yeah, because they've been naturally gifted for so many years in their life that they haven't really had to be developed in other ways.
Yep.
And that hurts.
Yep.
Because it's something they're unprepared for. Can you tell me about what you think this means to you? The willingness to prepare is more important than the desire to win.
Spot on. Yeah. I almost knew I was never going to win. Weirdly enough, I was the small team against the big team. Like I was always a David and Goliath kind of guy. Like I'm always the Rudy Rudiger dude. That's Notre Dame. That's my guys, like South Bend. And it's so funny because I was never in it to win. I was in it to do the best for me. And that's where it goes back to the comparison is the thief of joy and all of these cliche one-liners you can lean on. But that was really pivotal. Once I learned that, okay, actually, there's only a couple things these people can say. If I just know the couple of responses to them I used to remember, I would ask my manager, hey, what do you say to this? And he would say it, and I'd be like, hey, say that again. And I would write it down. And you get to show your age. We knocked with clipboards, and we didn't have iPads and phones. So I would have these flashcards with me on the doors, and I would have them teed up for that part of the presentation to where they would ask a question or they'd give me an objection, and I would be like quiet, and I would like, hey, that's a cool car. And I'm like trying to find the response, like searching through my note cards. And I'm like, yeah, so typically there's two kinds of buyers I deal with. And I would read off the note card, and it botched whatever I was trying to say, but it was 1% better. It was a little bit better than the last time. And then by doing that 5-10 times, failing forward, it became unconsciously competent. I deal with buyers all the time that say they need to talk to their wife. I mean, if she was here and you were talking with her, she'd probably tell you the same shit, right? Like, it's up to you, babe. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I just lost like 40 deals on them needing to talk to their wife, but they don't actually need to. But now I know how to navigate it better. I got the playbook.
Okay. Another question. What's the one objection you've mastered that most salespeople struggle with?
I need to think about it is probably up there, along with talking to the significant other, because they're the two that we feel like we don't have control of as a new rep, because you justify it, right? New rep comes in, they've never paid their own phone bill, they don't pay for their own schooling, but all of a sudden they have to think about things from a perspective of a buyer. And all as they tend to do is they think about it from a perspective as they are as a buyer, which is a young adult that's never really put anything in their name. Obviously, there's outliers to that have guys that do their own stuff. But for the most part, they've never paid their own phone bill. They're like, I would never pay that bill. It's no shit. You don't pay any bill. So obviously, you can't think about it like that. You have to think about it from the side of where you're meeting these people at in their home. They have a whole life going on. They're married. They have problems behind the scenes. Loved ones are sick. The kids are fighting. Like the one kid just got in trouble. Like whatever that story is. So for me, it took a while, but they would be like, I need to think about it. And what do we do as an experienced sales rep? Okay. Are you going to be available Friday? And then we have to learn through failures, because Friday would come around and the mofos wouldn't answer the door, and I would go there and I had all this energy and enthusiasm built up, and then Friday would come around and it just shits the bed. And then next thing I'm just stuck and I lost it and I'm blaming and I'm this and I'm that. And I need to think about it, and it just comes down to urgency. And so many, I think a better way to answer your question, other than what objections I've gotten really good at, it's what objections I've gotten better at avoiding them bringing up.
Oh, wow.
And so much of what we do on a door-to-door, no matter what the product or service is that you're selling, for us, it's alarms and solar. For other companies, it's, plethora of things. And this is in sales in general. We create objections. We say something that creates an objection. Whereas the ultimate form of sophistication is simplicity. The easier I make it, the less things that will come up. So there's so many things. And I worked with one of my greatest dudes I've worked with in Bracken Ingolstadt. He's out of North Carolina, and that's where I spent last summer. And he's an OG in the industry. And I had him listen to my pitch, and he's, dude, that was epic. That was amazing. But no one would even understand how epic it is, because every deal you get with a new rep, what is it? I would have sold that guy. That was an easy sale. What they missed was, hey, when it comes to this kind of stuff, who deals with it? You or the wife? Me. Okay. Just because I brought that up, later on, it eliminates him saying, I need to talk to my wife. Or, obviously, you need to think about this stuff. I don't blame you. And what we do with our company, and most guys don't even go over this with you. I got nothing to hide. We do a right of rescission. You get the trial period. Today being a Tuesday, you get till Friday. Make sure everything I'm telling you works the way it should. If for whatever reason it didn't, you ain't got to keep it. We come on, we pick it up from you. And that way, they're not needing to think about it, right? Because all of that thing is eliminating essentially that objection.
And that was brought up before you go and close them?
Before I close them. So all of these things I'm doing. A big one for me nowadays is research, because research used to be a really hard thing back in the day to overcome. Like, I need to research.
So before we do that objection, can we maybe role play here with me being the customer and you doing everything you know that you do very well? You knock my door, you transition the house, you present it to me, you're going to sign me up. And I give you my phone number as you're progressing. And then I say, Brian, this is awesome, but I just need to think about it. We're not, oh, no, here's a better one. We're not doing this today, are we?
Oh, yeah. That's the best part about it. How we do everything, and I get it. The last thing you expected is me to come by and try to sell you something. You didn't wake up expecting to get an alarm and a full camera system for $4,000. I get it. But the cool thing is, with my guy being out here, and I just built with my tech already being out, with them just getting done with the Joneses, if you had to pay all of this cost up front, the only way you're doing it is after a break-in. Would you agree? Like most people in our industry, I'll be honest with you, man, that are at the point we're at now, where you already told me it made sense. You already had a habit of leaving the door unlocked with your garage door freaking open. I would hit on the pain points again, resell them on that first number I had them at. So say I'm trying to sell a $120 package. And I'm like, yeah. So I would go over all the benefits of what we had over with them, and I would try to close again. And if at that point it's still I need to think about it, more often than not it's price, right? So then we're gonna negotiate.
So let's go ahead and play that then.
Yeah, for everything you're getting, and do me this favor, Sam. Right now you're paying. You have who for your cell phones?
I have T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. How many phones do you have?
I have a big family. I pay for it all, so $350.
That's not even bad, right? We play down whatever their cost is, because I know no matter what a cell phone bill is, unless they got Cricket or Metro PCS or Consumer Cellular, our bill is cheaper. So I'm like, $350. That's not bad. You got room on the family plan for Brian? No, I'm just kidding. I just got off my parents' family plan, so they're grateful for it. So you don't need to add nobody to yours. But knowing you're paying $350 for just a couple phones, and I downplay what that guy just said is it's a big expense. $350 is not bad. Knowing you're paying $350 for a couple phones, what do you think this thing would cost you to get the camera in the front, the one in the back, the one on each side? So you're getting the 4K cams all around. You're getting the newest doorbell. You're getting that door lock. You're getting the garage door. And I almost want to sound long-winded. And they're just for the garage door, for the thermostat, for the full security, the discount on your homeowner's insurance, the app on your phone, the 24/7 recording. Knowing you're paying $350 for a couple phones, what do you think something like this would cost you?
I would say maybe about what I pay for my cell phone, $300.
Yeah, that's why everyone's doing it. The bottom line is it's $60 for your service. That's the value in Vivint. It's the warranty, the monitoring, the recording, the cameras. You get the unlimited apps. The equipment's just $66. On the equipment, we give you up to the 60 months at 0%. Have you ever used DirecTV?
No.
You remember with all the bills you're used to with Cox, they start you low, and then what happens? The bill goes up.
Yes.
And then you end up canceling. We don't want to be the company where you like us today and you hate us in a year because your bill went up. How it works for us is when equipment's done, the equipment goes away, your bill drops from the $140 back down to the $50. I should be able to get it approved, or the only thing you'd pay today would be that. But let me create an account. Let me see if I can do a little bit better. And it's Sam, or is it Samuel on your ID?
It's
Samuel. And then last name spell for me?
Stratford.
Perfect, Mr. Stratford. Cell phone number for you.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Date of birth. Okay, let's go, Sam.
What?
You qualified, baby. You got to teach your neighbors how to pay the bills, man. So yeah, all that numbers. So this is the bottom line. I'd show them on the iPad. We're going to take care of this cost. You're just paying this. You're paying $1.48 today. You decide to keep it. You pay your next month's bill. It's $114. And then also too, once everything's set up this afternoon, my company's going to email you. They're going to give you a certificate. You give it to your homeowner's insurance agent. It saves you some money for having the alarm. So that way you can get the savings. And the only thing I do from here, and that's a big one-liner for all you salespeople, like progression is where most sales are lost. We get stuck in these stalemates where it's like, they're a buyer. What do? We're overselling. We're still trying to justify to Mr. Sam why he wants to buy it. Whereas Mr. Sam just needs to be, they don't know what our next step is. They don't know where our intention of literally having a tech come and drill a hole for a freaking panel to go up, and we're about to make 4 holes into their concrete siding. I'm putting 4 cameras up. They don't know all of that's happening. So it's my job as a sales professional to ease that tension. That's why I bring up the bill going up over time versus it going down, or the bill going down versus it going up. Because subtly, they're not going to tell you, I don't trust you. They're going to be like, what happens after my equipment's paid off? I want to beat them to that. So all the things that I try to do throughout my sales cycle is avoid objections, bring them up, like the common, bring it up before they do. And the more of that you can do and the more streamlined you can get with your close, the better off you're going to be. In the worst case scenario, I would just re-loop and lowering the bill. I would just keep re-looping. Okay, so talking with you, Mr. Sam, 120 is more than what we want to pay.
Yeah, so say I like push back and you're progressing. You've maybe left 0 question unanswered.
Yeah.
Because you're beating me to it, like you said. But I then say, oh, we're not doing this today, though, are we?
Yeah, we would. And that's a great point. Great point, Sam. Most people pause the sell. Keep it simple. Yeah, we're doing it today. What do reps do? We don't have to. When's a better time to work it out? Talk with your guy like you talk to him at a bar, or talk to your friend, or talk to him how me and you were talking. You call it a spade. Yeah, we're doing it today.
Okay. I'd need to think about it.
Of course you would. Yeah. And so the cool thing with us, and most guys don't go over it with you, I'm going to leave it for you in the back of your packet. It's the right of rescission. We get it. You don't know me from nobody else. But at the end of the day, I eat, sleep, and breathe this. I'm going to show you this really quick. It's embarrassing. And I would go to my phone. I have a folder saved with all my customers. Tell me when to stop, Mr. Sam. And I would just scroll through. If you're listening to this, I'm just scrolling through my phone, hundreds of pictures with customers, thousands of them. I'm just telling him when to stop. And he's like, oh, I get it, man. I get it. Like, I know what you're doing. It's like, you're not going to be the first. You're not going to be the last. I know I'm going to help you. I know it's going to benefit you. And at this point, I have leverage, because I'm not at a close without leverage. You have to know where your benefit is for them. And if you get to this point, it's I need to think about it, and you haven't discovered the hot buttons, you haven't figured out what they really like about the system, that's the big part you're missing. And so I think and I meant to bring this up earlier, the biggest breakthrough in my sales career was qualifying, learning how to qualify buyers. my buyer. And I learned that from, shout out Jeremy Moriello. Me and him, differences over the years, but dude taught me how to qualify, man. Qualifying is, do I want to waste my time, give you the dog and pony show? Am I giving you the show? Like, based on what I ask you, a series of questions, and it's not like a multiple choice test. I'm having it in natural conversation. So when you guys leave, is it through the front of the garage? Okay, when you leave about the garage, who's worse about it? It's not, are you bad about it? Who's worse about it? You or the wife. You leave, you get to QT, and you're like, crap, I didn't close my garage. They're like, her. Okay, one hot button. So it's like a little bit of, we look at like temperature gauge. For me, I just want to stack up as much value as I can to where when I get to the close, it's obvious. Like, we don't get a lot of the thinking about it. It's usually self-inflicted, extreme ownership. I skip steps.
You skip steps.
I skip steps. And the guy's like, I want cameras, bro. Show me what you got. Dude, just cut to the price. And he's a late on, and I quote him at 120. And I need to think about it, but I love it. We're going to do it.
Can you give me an example of why or when you would qualify? And
so the definition of qualifying is the art of revealing direction. So it's like, it's giving yourself your GPS route to where you're going. And for me, I'm guilty of it, especially here in Arizona. Like, point A to point B, I don't know streets. People are like, I live on McDowell and this. I'm like, dude, I just follow the GPS. For me, qualifying is giving you the direction. So like giving you the route to go. How do I get the route? For getting directions, it's putting it into maps. For us getting the direction in a sales cycle, it's asking questions. So the art of asking questions effectively is that it's an art. And to get real substantial answers that you're going to be able to get that direction from, you have to ask them very nonchalant, and you have to ask them with seriousness sometimes. So like, dude, who cares most about security? You or the wife? And be honest with me, man, like, God forbid anything happen.
I would say me.
Yeah. What makes you say you?
I lock the doors at night.
You do. So you're the guy that does. How would it make you feel just knowing that if you're in bed, you don't have to get up out of bed. You can go on the phone, check and make sure the door's locked. You know, got the system armed. You can check the cameras, make sure your truck. It would feel good, right?
Yes.
Obviously it would. So the only thing that matters now is if I can get that cost into your budget. That's my job. Everything else I'll take care of, but let's customize a system to suit your needs, and we'll go from there. And then it's just question-based selling when you're coming and going, garage or front. So I lead with garage and front door. And then from garage and front door, it's ideally dream scenario. Doesn't cost you anything. Let's just play hypotheticals here, Sam. If you were to get cameras, you're going to get the doorbell for working with me today for free. You're going to get the camera in the front above the car. So that's a gimme. Besides the camera in the front and besides the doorbell, would you have liked the idea of having the full 360 view or just more worried about the front and the back?
I would say the full 360 view.
Perfect. So that's what I would do if I was you. So and I would take them. We'd go do a walk around, see where those 360 cameras would go, and it would just progress the sales. So if you can get really good at qualifying, I just look at it as it's finding your direction. How do I get the direction? I get the direction through questions, and then those questions build up to build value. Once I have the value, I can present price, and we overcomplicate the shit out of things. Really, it's keep it super simple. People say keep it stupid simple, whatever the freaking sayings are. It's just make it easy. You're going out, I'm knocking on your door, getting you to like me real quick. Funny jokes. Let me show you some stuff. And then from there, it's a questions on if I want to give them the dog and pony show. If I want to,
and if you don't get the answers you want,
leave.
Determine that you're qualifying.
Don't waste time.
So you'll have many times where they like you. It feels right, but then you go into the house, you sit down at the kitchen table, you ask these predetermined questions.
I leave right there.
You leave right then and there.
Yep.
You don't waste a single more minute.
I'm not the one that can make the decision. To be honest with me, you've been married 20 years. If I show you the numbers and you love it, you can't call the wife and show her? No. Where's she at? When's she going to be back? There's strategy where like she's going to be home in 20 minutes. I'm going to stay in the house, right? I'm going to stay and hang out. But if she's out of town and I know the car's been gone and it's a comeback and I needed to catch this person, I'd rather have a shot later on because once they know the price, they don't care about you. So I'm gonna do everything I can just to give me that leverage. Where usually they don't even answer the door, let's be honest. Come back, an appointment. I'll take my chances. I'll roll the dice on it. If you work in a market a long time, you'll be able to catch that person eventually.
And is that what led you to sell maybe 8 in a week versus 8 in a day?
Yeah. Spending effective time.
You
I stopped making my sales 4 hours long, 3 hours long. I was cutting time. That's the time wasted is, I think, in my opinion, one of the biggest difference between a vet and a rookie. They know where to spend their time. It's definitely the biggest difference between a high-producing sales rep and a good sales rep. There's unlimited doors. It's unlimited. People will be like, haven't you knocked? I can knock the same door, same market, 10 different times. The 10th time's the time you catch them.
And can you explain to me what you say when people say, I want to research this?
You got to beat them to it. That's the biggest one. As soon as I've gotten value, I know they're the decision maker. I know what equipment they're going to, have the idea of liking. I almost have the quote sheet written out. I use like a little sheet of paper to demo the pricing or show them what they would cost, because on paper, seeing the numbers is a lot better than just hearing it, because it creates more trust, in my opinion. But before I ask for their close, I want to eliminate all the things I can say. So the objection of research and thinking about it and are you the decision maker need to be eliminated before you close. If you're getting those three at the close, you're not qualifying properly. So if I get to the close and it's what was
the question is, when you get to avoid getting the research objection.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You say you don't get the price because value always tremendously exceeds the price that you give them. So you don't typically get that. You don't get the spouse objection because you vet them very profusely when you qualify them. Mm-hmm. What you do get more than those two is the research objection. Is that true?
Yeah, I have research is my objection. You ain't getting me on research because the offer is too good.
And when do you bring up that research?
As soon as I have credibility, and sometimes it's my first thing. When I open up a door, they open up the door and they're using a competitor, we'll say a Skybell or a competitor's camera, and I know it's a shit review. I'm like, you big researcher?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I love working with researchers. No, I'm not. Me neither. I hate research. But I'm just going to show you because everyone tells you what you want to hear. They all say they're the best. Every guy, how long you lived here, Sam?
10 years.
10 years. In 10 years, sadly, I'm not the first sales guy to come by, right?
No.
Everyone tells you the same shit. They're all the best. It's hard for everyone to be the best. Do you have an iPhone or an Android?
I have an iPhone.
iPhone, perfect. If I were to go to the App Store right now, I look up Skybell, click on that, it's 2 stars. If you would have seen that prior to you getting it through this company, you wouldn't have gotten it. No chance. If I go to Vivint, just to show you I'm not wasting your time and I'll get up out of here. If I search Vivint, it's like 700,000 reviews, almost 5 stars. Are we perfect? No way. Are we the best at what we do? 100% of the time. So I know if you're a researcher, you would have already landed on Vivint. I'm surprised you haven't seen this already. If I go to Google, I search best home security system in the US. I know what links to click to progress my sale properly, where it's boom, this link shows, this link will show this. And it's just quick credibility, man. Because early on, the company wasn't what it is today. So I would lose the BBB, right? You'd lose the guys on that kind of crap, and it would frustrate the crap out of me because it's like out of my control. No, I control the freaking research objection. I'm giving that on 100% of my doors.
100% of your doors.
100% of the doors.
And that also gets inserted at the very beginning, or when does it get inserted if not at the very beginning?
If not at the very beginning, before I drop price. So I've gotten over everything. I've pretty much got what their order would be.
Before you relate this to the cell phone bill?
Yep, before I relate to the cell phone bill.
Before you ask them, hey, how much do you pay for a cell phone? Who do you go with? How many phones?
Yep.
You bring up...
Like a big researcher?
Just casually.
Casual Dan. I want them to feel, and they're usually like, no. And it's funny because that same person that I eliminated the objection on earlier, they said no. That same door a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago was talking to a sales rep just like me. And they told him, I'm a big researcher. I need to research. Come to find out that no one they're not a researcher.
They just use it as an excuse.
It's using it as an excuse. They fool.
What's another aspect to research? Or if you think we have enough of research?
I go to Google, best home security system in the US. Forbes, click on that. Forbes, right, Sam?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Forbes, number 1. One's too good to be true. If I go to the next link down, SafeWise, Vivint, number 1. Next link down, CNET ranked Vivint is number 1. So you have to know the links, and that goes back into preparation, right? I know where I'm prepared on it. And I think that happened from losing so many deals where like they would give me research and I would be working in a market where a summer team would come into it. I would go back to that same house that it's like, old Daryl wanted a research. And next thing you know, they got Vivint. And I'm like, what the?
Someone else sold them. How do you get over the same day install? Because I imagine, like everybody who does this job at a high level, you have to lose deals with this objection before you can win at a high rate.
Yeah, it's a frustrating one. A lot of PTSD from hearing that one.
But you don't get many jobs that don't install the very same day, do you?
No. The only time ever is if I don't have a tech available. Like the only out they're given on that is my out. Otherwise, they're getting it today.
Okay. When would you bring up, hey, we're getting this installed the very same day?
Very important. Let me get a sip of this.
Yes. Maybe you can explain the before, the during, and the after. So people have maybe contextual relevance.
I would say the number one thing is that sale is not a ta-da moment. It doesn't just, oh, yeah, let's do it. It don't happen that way. When we know that. In any sale you're in, it's never, oh, we're going to do it. You've laid the groundwork. You've followed a strategic method on getting to progressing the sale. So for that one, you have to be, in a sense, like planting seeds throughout the sale. Like, and they're awkward. Like a guy will go from, yeah, man, we're not interested. I got to be somewhere today. I was like, yeah, no big deal. The nice thing with us being out here today, though, is we travel with the techs. So if you guys were to qualify, I'm not even saying this is a no-brainer yet, but if you were to qualify, we can get it to where as long as you guys can work with our tech availability, we can usually get this thing where it's like $1.48 down. I'm not saying it's, a yay or a nay yet. When you guys come and go from the home is usually the front door or the garage door. and I just go right back to the sale. So that's like my first seed I'm planting. And it's usually an awkward time. Like, we can't do it today. I know. And sometimes I have to meet them in a middle ground. Sometimes like we have to know buyers are liars. And when I go shop, I'm the same way. And when you go shop, you're the same way. The biggest tip is if you have to look at it from a strategic standpoint, like bringing it up 4 or 5 times before you're telling them it's today. And really by telling them it's today, the paperwork's already done. It's at the end of it, they're just like, so when are we doing this? It's dude, great thing is Evan's on his way here right now. He's literally down the road. And you've seen the videos online from other Vivint managers. What's quicker, a Cheetah, Jimmy John's, or Vivint? And they're like, dude, Vivint, dude. We're the fastest.
I've never heard that. A Cheetah, Jimmy John's,
they're like,
Vivint?
What do you think's faster, Cheetah
that's so
or an
funny.
eagle or something? They do all this weird
that's
stuff.
Great, but not to deviate from what you're explaining.
So it's just, for me, it's the urgency of the technicians being in the neighborhood. When I'm price dropping, usually if you were to call in, it would be this. For us being out here today, it's this. And a hard thing for sales reps is they look at it like in a sense of manipulation. I can give them that deal whenever. You can, right? I can wait and give them the same deal later, but my value goes down when I do that. So I value my time and my energy and my effort more than what they value my time and effort, which that should be the case. You should value your time more than their time. But when you're in that heat of the moment, like you are locked in for them. Like this is there to help them. And a lot of reps fall into the habit of, they've given me so much of their time. Like they're going to be fine. They're going to get installed. And they're just hard lessons that reps have to do. They have to lose them to get them. So they'll lose deals. And I've had enough schedule outs there. I'm like, okay, you can't do it today. Yeah, we got soccer at 4:30 and we're going to dinner and we have an anniversary. Like I always tell people, I was like, luckily I've never had anyone miss an anniversary dinner. I've never had anyone miss a plane. So as long as you're not missing one of those two, you're going to be good. My tech will work with you. And the greatest thing about it, it's super easy. My tech comes out. I'm going to introduce you to Evan's even cooler than me. So Evan will come out. He ain't a weirdo. And so I want to assure them, because if you've had cable installed, you've had internet installed at your house, there's some bad apples in that do that kind of stuff. And people are already thinking, do this door to door. I don't want the tech here too. So they're not going to tell you all this stuff. So I've just built it into my pitch to how I explain it. So dude, you're going to love him. And the best part about it, he needs you for 5 minutes. He's going to show you. He's going to do a little walk around with you, show you where everything goes. You're literally going to get back to cooking dinner. You cook dinner. At the end of it, Evan's going to need you for 5 minutes. He's going to download the apps with you on your phones. He's going to show you how to use it. And then today being Tuesday, I'll come back by tomorrow. What's your schedule like?
I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, I'll come back by whenever you're freed up. I'll see the car out front. I'll swing by, at least dance by the camera, make sure everything's humming. And Evan should be here within the next 5-10 minutes. So you're good to go. And they're going to keep pushing back until the tech gets there and done.
Amazing.
It's tough, though. It's tough.
It is tough. But then what do they get if they do it today?
You can't do cash. You can't ethically bribe people anymore. We're working with loans and things like that. So you got to be legit, which is important. There's so many tools on our side to be able to leverage it. And I'm at this point, I never want to show our iPad to a customer. This is my thing. You're not looking at my iPad. A lot of reps have a bad habit of kind of showing them stuff. But if I'm in a stalemate with somebody and they're just not doing it today, I need to think this and that. I'm showing them the iPad. One technique I use is with my text meet out, they give me the ability to go all the way down on your service. If you were to have to pay $40 more a month on Tuesday of next week to do it, would you do it? No, if you're not doing it at 80, you're definitely not going to do it at 120. So what's the real reason as to why you guys aren't switching? What's the real, and you can just tell me now I'm about to get up out of here. And I'm about to leave, kind of set the table as I'm leaving, maybe grabbing my stuff, getting ready, and they're going to tell you the real objection. So there's a lot of different sales techniques you can study to learn it, but the best way to do it is
I'm getting this installed today.
I'm showing them the iPad, I'm giving them the discounts. The next thing is like, hey, I'm going to ethically bribe it. Are you the type of guy, Mr. Sam, if you were to get it, hypothetically, you're the type of guy where you would tell your friends and family about us if you liked it?
I think so, if I were pleased with it.
Do me this favor. I'm going to give you literally, it's not about what I make on this thing. It's about me helping you because I know every person I set up, I'm usually getting 3 or 4 referrals from. I'm going to cover your first 3 months of service. I'm going to give you the free doorbell. I'm going to waive your installation fee. So literally you're paying $1.48 down. If by Friday you don't want this thing, it doesn't do everything I'm telling you to do and more, do not keep it. Call me out. We come out and pick it up. But by Friday, when you know you love it, can you just do me a favor? Send me 3 people you know, whether it be your brother, coworker, friend, family member that have a competitor alarm, and just keep the price between us. I just hate to be the bad guy where I can't give free deals to everybody. Obviously, I got to make money too. But in this one, I'm willing to break even to make it make sense for you. If I can get it to where you don't have a bill for the first 3 months on your service, is there any reason why you ain't doing it? Let me send everything to your email. Only thing I would do from here. I give him my concession. Mm-hmm. And after the concession, does that work good, Mr. Customer? We send everything to the email. You're going to do a couple John Hancocks. It's going to confirm everything I went over with you. All the stuff you sign, you get an email copy of it. You have it all for your record. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send you my direct contact. Save me in your phone. I want to be your guy. I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. And that human part of it right there, it really helps out people. It's a nice picture, like a little freaking headshot. It's got Vivint on there. I send it to them before they're even filling out paperwork. And I'm like, click on that, go down, create new contact. And if they're older, they're loving this part. And they're like, save. And I'm like, look, I'm saved in your phone. I'm not going anywhere, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. You're going to love this thing. I know at this point, the only reason why you're not doing it, because you don't know me from anybody else. I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. And you're seeing it right now.
You light up.
You can't say no. You can't say no to it. They need to be inspired by it.
They already like the product. They already
do.
like you. This is just reinforcing both of those things.
There's so many times I'm in a sale and I'm like, this is going good. And the guy's like, maybe I got to go grab something. I'll turn to the reps and be like, just wait. And he's like, well, Brian, everything looks good. We're just going to have to think about it.
You have practiced this so much because you're prepared. That's likely what gets people to transact. I can't say it's your personality because it helps, but that's not the reason why you perform at an elite level. What other best practices do you have?
I forget who talks about it. I think it's the miracle morning. It's winning your morning. And I didn't know this until later on in my career working with Jeremy. When you got around that power proximity, I used to get up, not very intentional. You wake up, you're like, I got to do this, I got to do that. I was never a schedule guy. I was just like, I do things when I want to do them. And when I changed to where I got up with intent, I set an intention for the day. I say my prayers in the morning. I get up, I shower, I go to the gym, do whatever I had to do. But that winning your morning, and then I set my state. And this is something that maybe being vulnerable with people, my best days, I have to get into a state. And it was interesting. I saw Puka Nakua, who spoke at Vivint. I don't know if you've seen this recently, but before every game when they're playing national anthem, he's sitting there and he's crying, thinking about his dad. His dad had passed away when he was younger. He's a vital person in his career. And for me, I keep my grandma's thing up in my review mirror of the car. And my best days, Saturdays especially, I'm feeling my emotions. I'm getting to a point where I'm not crying out of like bitchness, just crying to be grateful, like crying whatever it is, just where I can let out an emotion. When I'm on the doors, it's radioactive. It's so attractive. You can feel it. This guy's vulnerable. This guy's feeling the type of way.
This guy's himself.
Yeah, I can feel my best when I do that. So I definitely, that's a huge thing that's worked for me. Just be a sponge to the motivational realm, because motivation's bullshit. It's here today, gone tomorrow. Go out there and apply it. Get vulnerable a little bit before the doors. Set your intention for the day and make the decision once. I deal with reps every year, and one comes to mind, and he knows who he is as he's listening to this. But every day he's got to reconvince himself that it's the right place. That's the right job. And
dude, how exhausting.
It's so tiring, especially, and they're usually the most talented.
They self-sabotage. The warfare is inflicted in their heads, not in actuality. And so tell me about, why is it you're here at Vivint with all your talent, all your experience, versus somewhere else?
I'm a pro, baby. I love what I do. I've paid my dues, and I feel it would be doing myself a disservice to try to pivot. I'm just happy. I'm happy and I'm content, and I'm still feeling there's a next challenge. There's a next barrier to entry. There's a next thing I need to climb.
Can you tell me what it means to be in a vehicle where you can earn not just personal commissions, you can earn overrides, residual equity in a multi-billion-dollar company?
It's the extra carrot. When I'm analyzing, or I have guys that are, chirping the ear, because it happens every day, another rep or another solar
1%.
thing. And I think at the end of the day, as long as I'm feeling like I'm growing, I enjoy the people I'm working with. And Kenny talks about this, and I feel like I'm in the best position for me. The money is a byproduct of it. The money's going to come. But all of that said, it's like generational at this point. It's what I can almost be able to build that generational wealth for my loved ones, my brothers, my niece, nephew, parents, everybody. If
you were a first-year rep and you produce maybe 20 or 30 accounts and you're coming back a second summer, how important is it to scratch the recruiting itch?
I hate the guys that handicap themselves. And it's going back in my career path. It's like, well, I can't recruit because I didn't do this. Well, I need to do this first before I do that. You don't need a resume for this job. You don't need the accolades. You don't need a degree. It's the best and the worst part about it, because it opens the doors to a lot of people that really wouldn't have the opportunity. It's the worst because people get complacent and they stay in what they know. What I would challenge that rep at 20 to 30, maybe their strong suit, what the missing link is that they're not being able to drive themselves to do 50 to 100 because they're not challenging themselves to inspire someone close to them. I was the guy that was talking to all of my friends have done Vivint, know Vivint, or have worked with me. The hard lessons I've had to learn, some of them have worked out, some not so much, which is okay. But for the ones There's never been a guy or girl that's came out to this opportunity that's not grateful for it if they gave it their all. That is the most underrated part about door to door. There's never a summer job where I'm talking about the greatness of it. My job at the freaking semi-truck body shop didn't shape me into the man I am today. It just caused pain, which helped out in shaping me. But at the end of the day, I didn't get a lot of freaking experience from it. But I'll have these reps that come out and do 5 to 10 sales in a summer. It changed who they are, how they thought about the entire world. And it's crazy to think that, because it's not that we're preaching anything crazy. It's just preaching not the norm of what they hear on the news, on social media, and everything else. And it's my favorite part about the job, is just breaking preconceived notions people have of what we do. Hopefully people that are listening to that resonates with you, because the job's as hard as we make it. I asked a friend the other day, I was golfing with him. I said, "Do you wake up stressed?" And he's like in his, mid-20s. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm stressed." And I'm like, "What are you stressed?" Like, he's got a good job. He's making good money. What are you stressed about? "I don't know." And it's like, how do you not know? It's because they're getting that paycheck. They don't know what the unknown looks like. That scares them so much that they won't take the leap into our career path. And it's so rewarding. I've golfed last week. Everybody else I know I worked. I golf 7 days in a week, 6 days in a week. And this week I'm going to go work 6 days in a week. But there's not very other jobs where you get to go work.
Your lifestyle is deliberately chosen
unmatched,
by you.
Dude. It's unmatched.
And it might take 5 summers, 6 summers, but in any other career, if you want extraordinary success, you're going to have to pay your dues.
It's going to take you 5-10 years, not summers.
Years. To only be able to have the opportunity to earn maybe a quarter of what you earn. What's your highest earnings year at Vivint?
I think my best year was right around 700.
$700,000.
Yeah.
And if you were to go back to your second year or third year self and tell him about that type of earnings year and the lessons learned, do you think you would have ran faster?
It's a good question. I think the pace I was running at that point was the best I can do. So
there's no regret there.
No, there's no regret in my whole career, in my whole personal life. There's things that I failed at and I learned from, but I wouldn't go back and change anything. That's tough to say.
But how freeing, man.
Yeah, it is.
What's the moment in the job where you felt as if you could barely continue?
So after that summer, we did 2,500. I sold 250, made the dream team, sold 10 in a day. We moved back to Vegas. Me and the other manager at this point had a falling out. We were going back. We were in Vegas working, running a summer team, and we had a good year in Vegas. We did great out there. And then Vegas was hurting the relationship, hurting the personal life. I decided to move back to Arizona. We ran a summer team out of a park in the 120-degree heat, and it was my best year. It was when I did 2,500 accounts as an office. And I think it was a tough one. Like going back, it's like so many emotions are coming through the head, because that was like a big year. One of my sales reps married my ex. A lot of crazy things transpired, betrayals, a lot of hardships. And without all of it, it wouldn't make me the person I am. But those are ones I wish I could have avoided, but they needed to be there. They just needed to be there for whatever reason. And God only knows on that. We're learning.
Mm-hmm. A lot of tough ones, man.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have these tough ones, you probably wouldn't benefit from the relationship you have with yourself, with God, a higher level of understanding.
We needed it. Again, far from perfect, still on the journey. My only goal now is to help people like myself that are didn't know what they want in life. And there's so much just unguided people out there, man. Just where it's just like they're just going through the motions, not happy. Life is too precious not to love it all. I got that from Grandma, loving life through all the bullshit. If you're genuinely a down and out kind of person, I mean, outside of like your depression and your clinical stuff, which is, obviously everyone's got their stuff, but if you're a fully capable individual, you're unhappy with life, I think there's a lot of value that's overlooked in our industry, where it's just like help you figure yourself out and maybe pivot to another realm. The only people I've seen be successful that have quit this job are people that quit in the right ways. Yeah, they quit on their terms. Anybody that didn't quit on their terms, I don't care who you are, you didn't make it.
Not because you're looking for a life raft.
No.
You quit because you ascended to the mountain and you're choosing to call the helicopter. If people knew that you could earn $700,000 in a year, they would continue doing the job when times get tough?
No.
No, you don't. The money actually is not as much of a motivator as you think it would be, or you think it was when you first started out.
Money wasn't motivating at all. It was about proving the people around me wrong, proving myself right. A lot of that stuff was more of my intrinsic belief. Nothing money. Money came, money went. It's a tool. I just look at money as a tool. I could buy freedom with it. I could buy 6 rounds of golf. That's it. I like the golf.
You quantify how many rounds of golf you can buy with the amount of money you make.
Yeah.
What's the biggest mistake rookies make, and how do you coach them through it?
Big check syndrome, make early money quick. Guys that come out, the worst ones that happen to is they come out and our benchmark kind of is like 6 to 7 sales in a week. If you're doing that, you can earn, $4,000 to $5,000. And for some people that come in, they get quick, immediate success. They think it's going to be forever. They overspend where they think they're at in the growth process, where the guys are getting the new flashy cars, flashy watch, flashy this, flashy that. And they're spending outside of where they're actually at. The good and bad part about our job is we don't work all the time. And they think that it's just always steady. It's always going to be like this. And I think the biggest mistake now is they lose the momentum. They don't strike when the momentum's at the highest. They let the momentum they take what they had. I will take an uninformed, unexperienced, happy-go-lucky, super positive person over a top producer that's just mad, mean, and jaded about everything. I'll take the new guy. I'll put them up against each other, and usually the inexperienced one will always beat the jaded guy.
Why is it that the inexperienced one beats?
Because so much is a transfer of energy, and that energy is just so negative and just stale that it's just, dude, you can know it all, dude. But we don't, nothing makes sense about me making the money I make, or you making the money you make, or anybody in our industry making the money they make. It's just the same way makes no sense that athletes get paid what they get paid. But because they drive revenue to an entity, they're paid for that. And the best part about our job is we eat what we kill. I've been a full commission salesperson for my entire adult career, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The people that get clipped from a salary, I couldn't even imagine the salary. I thought about it the other day. A guy made like $40,000, and it's like he's unhappy. It's not about money, but he has no freedom and no money.
Yeah, he might have more predictability.
Yeah.
Comes at a cost. What's the worst financial decision you've ever made?
Early on, I made money, spent money, and I didn't buy a house. At that point, it was easier for me and the ex at the time. She never wanted to live where we were long term. So probably for me, not buying houses in those places, or just being fiscally responsible with that money. Luckily, I saved a lot. So that's put me in a position where I'm at now, where I just deploy it into the market and let the money make money. And that's where I can golf and have a little bit more freedom. Potentially retire whenever, but for me, I'm just still hungry for the game, not for the money.
And how meaningful is it, the equity you earn at Vivint every single year?
This is a cherry.
Is it a sweeter, redder cherry when it doubles over 12 months?
Yeah, that helped. Lately, I like looking at the NRG stock. NRG stock we love. So this isn't financial advice, but buy up.
And how important is it that you sell a differentiated product in the marketplace?
My favorite part about it. That's why I sell Vivint. I can lead with all of the differences, and I have a tactical advantage over every door I go to. And that's being a professional. That's knowing what their cameras does versus my cameras does. Sometimes their cameras have something that does differently or better. That's okay. I know all the things mine still do better. If you have a great product and you backed it up with a strategic approach, like I know going up to this house, if they don't have a doorbell camera, a camera above their cars, and no alarm sign, these people probably haven't talked to me. So I just own that. I'm like, they haven't talked to me, so they're going to get something from that. And the second thing is I have to have an angle. So why isn't that they've gotten it? Maybe they're renters. Maybe they're people that just, can't afford it, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, if it was free, people would have it. They would want it. It's like, why not have a camera on your car? It's dope. And it works the way it should. That's why I always tell people that I could tell you. It's kind of like far off to the salesman to tell you it's going to change the way you live in your home. I don't want to say that to you, but I'll see you in a month and you can tell me then. Like, it's going to change the way you live in your home. You can lock your doors, make sure the kids are home, especially if you have a family. I had a customer that canceled a couple weeks ago. They have 3 kids, elementary school, middle school, high school. They just canceled because it's like $80. These people were eating out while I was there. They canceled because of money. I feel bad for them.
They just might place more value in being able to eat at 3 different places than protect their home and family.
Yeah. And it goes back to like experience. I've seen so many times where I'm so pleasurably persistent with these people because I've set someone up or I've missed a sale. They've had an emergency happen. They've had a break-in. They've had a fire. They've had a carbon monoxide. And then they have to call. I've had people cry. I've heard every horror story. When you have that just in your tank, like, Sam, we're not thinking about it. You're 33 years old. Like, you're 31 years old. You have a family and kids. Like, I'm never going to push them in an uncomfortable way. It's got to be pleasurable persistence. I'm talking to you at a bar. The best analogy I give to my team is everyone, if you're in, goes back to sports, if you're in sports or you're a person that follows sports, the MJ versus LeBron talk, who's better, right? You'll have these young bucks that will like stand on the hill and die for LeBron and like say all this stuff. And then you have guys like myself or my parents that are like, dude, Michael. But how they argue it, it's not like politics where you're going to hate each other after the talk. With that, you're not going to not like each other after the talk about who's better, but they're all super opinionated on it, especially if you get to sports guys. Everyone's got their checklist. It's the same way I look at a sale. I have to be able to pleasurably argue with you sometimes. Sometimes it happens like that if you're selling big numbers where it's going to be a little awkward, but at the same time, we can shake hands knowing I helped you, or maybe I wasn't able to help you, but I'm going to keep it positive. I'm never leaving a house where we're not both on the same page, where it was a good experience. Even if they say no, you have to be willing. You can't have the fear of failure. You can't have the fear of loss. If they don't buy, it's extreme ownership, my fault. I even tell people at the end, you're so lucky you were my first order today because I blew this. You were such a sale. You're such a done customer. I'd bet any amount of money in the next 12 to 16 months, you'll have an alarm sign out front. I guarantee it. And 9 times out of 10, they do. And it's because I failed them. And I'll tell them that. And sometimes it'll bring them back in, and I've gotten sales after that. But yeah, just being very open and honest.
I have maybe just 2 more questions. I know we've been here for quite some time. I've enjoyed this so thoroughly. This one is extra special because you're able to articulate what hits home. It says, pain is a purifier. A bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul. Having done this job for as long as you have, what does that mean? Pain is a purifier. A bad day for the ego is a great day for the soul.
That's what gets me up, man. That's what gets me going. I always talked about it. I always said, what is something you're grateful for? And for however long I can remember, it was the suffering. That's kind of dark. The pain. Because I think early on I avoided it so much in sports where I never got to the level I wanted to get to. And so many listeners are going to resonate with that. There's only one A team. There's only one starting team. If you didn't make it, and you wanted to make it, it was your fault. It's not because they were better. It just goes back to me for that suffering. It's why I love to do it. David Goggins talks about it. It gets me fired up, or I think Jocko talks about it. It's like the more people that can't do it, the more fired I'm to do it. Like, so I love the pain part of it. It's a fine line because pain can create change for the good and for the bad. Luckily for me, like having addiction close, I lived in Vegas, my dad gambling, alcoholism. I had to tread lightly. That's why I knew I had to take the initiative to move from there. Sometimes that pain and suffering can lead you down a dark path. Luckily for me, I had good people around where it helped me. So it's definitely you take it with a grain of salt that like, I don't live for pain. I don't want to ever feel the pain, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable. I have a video on a phone where I can go back to it and I'm just broken. I'm just trying to get a sale. It's so shallow. I'm just trying to sell somebody a freaking alarm system at 9:00 on a Wednesday, the week before Christmas, and they don't want it. I don't even want to do it. And I just sit there and I think, and I go back to that mindset, and I would get out the car and I would get a sale. It's not the sale that did it. It's just like doing that such hard, impossible shit when it hurts and your back's up against the wall. Todd talks about it. Every CEO you've ever heard. Greatness is on the other side of that suffering. I wish I could just shake these kids that are going through it. It's like, just love it.
If I could ask you one more question. If you could write any message on a billboard publicly on a main highway, somewhere, maybe here in Arizona, what would be written on it?
It'd have to be something with optimism. It'd have to be something where there's faith at the end of it that you are going to make it. So whatever that one-liner, cliche quote you ever want to put on there, something that pertains to you're going to be okay no matter the outcome. I used to go to a church in Vegas that would always say that. And so like, I think we get so caught up on the chase and the accolades that we get away from, at the core of all of this is self-development, just being the best versions of us. We say it a lot in this industry. And so for the people, hopefully it's just the hope part. I'm an optimist where I let's look to the positives of things. The bad is good. The good is bad. Like, it's all good. So everything's good. And it's not always good. That's the funny thing. I feel corny saying it because it's just a peace, love, and hope. It's all going to be okay. No, it's not. You have to execute. You have to go out there. You have to suck. You have to struggle. You have to pay your dues. You have to lose people, gain people, struggle, sweat, cry, put all the stuff in between. And then at the end, you get to a little flash of it for a little bit. And then it's like back to the same thing. Ding, 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 ding. And hopefully by the end of it, you get to look back and you get to leave an impression on people. You got to help people from where they're at, meet them where they're at. If I died tomorrow, just knowing that I was able to be a good example for my brothers, for my niece, for my nephew, for my aunts, uncles, parents, loved ones, ex-loved ones, everybody. It just comes from a place of love.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable, being sincere, the inspiration you are to people around you, maybe from a close point of view or from a distance. I admire you a ton. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, Sam. It's all love, buddy.